Li Mei's Sword of Destiny. Chapter 40:11. Self-created ability Lord Flame. Rumble. Meanwhile, after Lin Ling lightly poured his boundary essence into the violet butterfly, the butterfly instantly grew larger, and a wisp of a taboo aura effused out and enveloped the entire world. At this moment, countless people felt their hearts being suppressed. An innate divine weapon, and a 7th grade one at that. This is the Purple River 6 Butterfly Divine Chariot. Lin Ling looked up and couldn't help but gasp. A 7th grade divine artifact. In the past, when he was in the Shop of Gods, the highest grade he bought was only 5th grade. Moreover, this purple butterfly was clearly left behind by the gods for Lin Ling. Therefore, Lin Ling did not need to refine it at all and could use it directly. He was even clear about the power of this divine chariot. A godly chariot that is able to kill a martial god in the late martial god realm. Even though it's damaged and can only be used 3 times, the fact that it's able to kill everything is shocking enough. That's because the divine chariot can even kill an advanced stage martial god with the divine fetus body. A large number of voices appeared in Lin Ling's mind. He was even more shocked by the purple butterfly. Off to the side, the giant ghost's face was also filled with shock. Heavens! Even a divine fetus can be killed? How can a mere 7th grade innate divine weapon possess such power? Because this divine chariot is damaged and can only be used a limited number of times, it is classified as a 7th grade divine chariot. Most importantly, it has the light of destruction, which is specialized in destroying divine fetuses. Lin Ling said word by word. Following the voice in his mind, he became more familiar with the purple butterfly. The giant ghost's face twitched, and it began to carefully size him up. The gigantic butterfly floating in the sky flapped its wings slightly. It had a total of 6 wings, and every time it flapped, sparkling light sprinkled down like snow. It was extremely beautiful. How did this look like a powerful divine artifact? It was more like a work of art. If I can find the cloud silk flower, then the Purple River 6 Butterfly Divine War Chariot will be able to unleash a total of 5 attacks. That's because the cloud silk flower is precisely what it needs to repair itself. Lin Ling said after digesting all the sounds. I understand now. The first treasure of the God's Legacy treasure gives cultivation resources, cultivation insights, and life-saving trump cards. That purple butterfly must be the life-saving trump card. The giant ghost suddenly thought of something and couldn't help exclaiming. The god who left the Legacy God's Legacy, Divine War Chariot. Unfortunately, Lin Ling's god had only bought 4 treasures. If he had bought all 4 treasures, Lin would have been unimpeded in the martial god realm. He would have become a god in a short time. Lin Ling smiled as though he had thought of the giant ghost's thoughts. This is enough for now. After all, there are many martial gods in the final world. However, not everyone can break through to the next realm easily. With these advantages, I'm obviously faster than them. However, then Lin Ling's eyes turned serious. I'm afraid I'm not the only one with such luck. I remember that there are 3 other gods' heirloom treasures. No one can guarantee that the Black Deity will give the remaining 3 gods' heirloom treasures to a rising star. Furthermore, no one can guarantee that the other gods don't have gods' heirloom treasures. That's true. The giant ghost nodded. But I can be sure that those who have the same luck as you, Lin Ling, are not much different from you in terms of talent. Long Yang is one of them. I have a feeling that when we meet again, her strength has greatly increased. Lin Ling smiled in agreement. What a troublesome female enemy. If I become weak, she will definitely kill me at any time. Sometimes I really want to kill that bomb. You won't kill her. The giant ghost shook his head when he heard Lin Ling's words. But it's better to have her. This way Lin Ling can continue to be motivated and become stronger. After all, you don't want to be surpassed by your former opponent. That's right. I won't be surpassed by her. She is becoming stronger now, but I, Lin Ling, am also becoming stronger now. The god's fragment appeared in Lin Ling's hand as he looked at the sky. Of course, Tian Lili is my main enemy to surpass. She probably doesn't know that I, Lin Ling, am not only not dead, but have also quietly become stronger. I will soon reach the mountain peak where she is. With that, Lin Ling immediately began to refine the god's fragment. And the god's legacy treasure he had obtained was of the fire element. Therefore, The God's fragment was more for improving Lin Ling's fire element talent. Rumble. After the God's fragment was refined, Lin Ling's body immediately burned. Figures formed by flames continuously practiced in Lin Ling's mind. And on the surface of Lin Ling's body, golden flames quietly appeared and enveloped his body. They constantly swallowed and spat, making him extremely dazzling. Almost at the same time, Lin Ling's fire element God's enlightenment increased crazily. When the enlightenment completely merged with the human monarch's flame, Lin Ling's heart finally exploded. Although he had many talents, he had never carefully comprehended them and lacked refinement. He had always relied on his level to suppress his opponents. But now his fire element talent had finally been refined. The mystique he comprehended this time was called by Lin Ling, human monarch's flame. This was the power of God's flame of the human monarch's flame, and also the current first level. This mystique was clearly created by Lin Ling himself. With Lin Ling's enlightenment of fire from a young age, the enlightenment of fire left behind by God, and the God stones, he finally created it. Because this mystique refined 7 God stones, it unexpectedly gave birth to 2 powers of God. Furthermore, they were also fire element powers of God. And this human monarch's flames method was like sprinkling down the world's first wisp of flame, shooting into the opponent's body in the form of a meteor. Then it burned the opponent's dantian, controlling the opponent. Of course, Lin Ling was the master who created this mystique, so he was very clear that this method was only effective against martial artists whose talent was weaker than his. Moreover, although this flame could not be extinguished, if the person hit by the flame reacted quickly, they could also abandon a large portion of their dantian's power at the same time the flame burned their dantian, avoiding the fate of being controlled by the human monarch's flame. Of course, the consequence was that their cultivation realm regressed. And this mystique was undoubtedly very tyrannical, allowing Lin Ling to control martial god realm powerhouses like a human monarch. One had to know that although there were many martial god realm powerhouses in the final world, there were only a few who possessed divine fetuses. And those without divine fetuses would be unable to withstand a single blow from Lin Ling. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Ling opened his eyes. In the depths of his eyes, a wisp of God's majesty pervaded the air. Now he called himself God. In the 9 provinces, who would not submit to him? His fingers lightly clenched into a fist, and he suddenly flicked his finger. Then, a wisp of terrifying golden flame shot out, shooting forward at the speed of 5,000 worlds, and enveloping an ancient tree. And the tree was immediately set ablaze, but it was extremely gorgeous like a fiery tree with golden flowers. But soon, all the flames retracted into the tree's body. Chapter 40:12. 10 years later. Go! Lin Ling growled at the same time. Both of his hands shot out countless golden flames, landing on the ancient trees in the mountains. Those ancient trees were immediately set ablaze. From afar, the scene was extremely spectacular. The entire endless mountains had turned into a golden ocean. This spectacle was naturally seen by the people in Buddha Dao City. They all knelt down, thinking that it was a miracle. But soon the golden ocean disappeared, and everything returned to normal. The endless sea of trees was still tumbling in the wind, but no one knew that at the center of those trees, there was a wisp of golden flame burning. It had been assimilated by Lin Ling. What an interesting method! Lin Ling finally stood up and nodded in satisfaction after experimenting for a while. Even the trees have been assimilated. If it landed on a cultivator's body, I'm afraid no one would be able to resist. This method is much more powerful than those unorthodox methods of controlling people's hearts. Moreover, your human king's flame contains 2 strands of divine power. It's really extraordinary. The giant ghost beside him also clicked his tongue. The divine power I've comprehended is not limited to this. Because not only can I control my opponent, I can also make them stronger. For example, the platinum evil spirit. Lin Ling smiled and suddenly looked at the platinum evil spirit not far away. Then a wisp of golden flame was shot out by him. When it landed on the platinum evil spirit, the evil spirit immediately swayed slightly. On the surface it looked the same as before, but in reality its strength had increased again, because its attack was now mixed with the human king's flame. Noticing the platinum evil spirit's improvement, The giant ghost was shocked again. This was allowing the divine fetus body to descend on another person's body. How could the other person's strength not increase when they had the divine fetus body? Of course, the most terrifying thing was that Lin Ling could make others stronger, but he could also withdraw this power at any time. This was because he was the true king of flames. Without a doubt, Lin Ling's strength had increased again after this cultivation. How long have I been cultivating this time? Lin Ling looked at the giant ghost and smiled. 10 years. The giant ghost's words caused Lin Ling to jump in shock. Without even realizing it, he had already been practicing cultivation for 10 years. This was the longest time he had ever spent in seclusion ever since he started practicing martial arts. Why do I feel like it's only been a few days? It seems like after reaching the martial god realm, time passes even faster. Lin Ling couldn't help but shake his head helplessly. He stood up and looked towards the distant sky. 10 years was neither too long nor too short for powerful cultivators. He wondered how the current 9 prefectures had changed. Let's go to the final world and meet Lei Gong. Then Lin Ling stood up, looked at the endless mountains in the distance, and bowed slightly to them. He didn't know if that ancient god was still around, but he, Lin Ling, would remember this favor in his heart. Walking along the main road, Lin Ling was about to leave this world when his eyes suddenly lit up and landed in Buddha Dao City. He then shook his head and said, I didn't expect that guy to still be here after 10 years. The giant ghost stopped drifting and suddenly looked towards a certain direction outside the city. There were 2 groups of people fighting for water. It turned out that in the past 10 years, the area around Buddha Dao City had suffered from a severe drought. Other than the ancient mountains of Mount Zhongnan, there was a shortage of water everywhere. However, the ancient mountains of Mount Zhongnan were the land of Buddha Dao, so no one dared to dig for water there. Now that rain had finally come and irrigated the land, the water was still not enough, so the 2 forces were fighting for water. Damn it, Lai Ba, you're too overbearing. The water clearly belongs to us, but you're blocking it and letting it flow to your side. Do you want to die? The group that appeared on the ground looked extremely valiant. On the other hand, there were fewer people. The middle-aged man in the lead was very short and had a radish head. No matter how one looked at it, they were not as ferocious as the other side. Coupled with the fact that the middle-aged man in the lead was short, people looked down on them even more. Dad! Beside the middle-aged man, a child with a big head pulled the middle-aged man's clothes worriedly. It seemed that this was his son, just like a radish head. It's okay, Dad is here. The middle-aged man's eyes had a sense of vicissitudes. Clearly, he had experienced a lot over the years. He was no longer the young master who knew nothing. Ever since his father handed over Lai Jia village to him, he had shouldered a lot. Under the torment of reality, the spirit and fearlessness of the youth of the past had gradually been restrained. Let your guards fight, we'll decide the winner in one battle. The water will belong to whoever wins. At this time, a burly man on the opposite side sneered. The people of Lu Town are too despicable. This is clearly our territory, but they want to steal water from us. The people of Lai Jia village said angrily. They looked at the land in the distance, where there were large and small ditches. The water flowed through the ditches to irrigate the land, but if the water was intercepted, then their paddy fields would dry up. Master Lu, I'm counting on you. The middle-aged man also knew the crux of the matter, so he didn't talk nonsense and said to the old man behind him. This Master Lu was left to him by his father, and was also his guard. All these years, he had been by his side, watching the Lai Jia village gradually decline from prosperity to decline. Good. Master Lu walked out. His steps were steady. Clearly, his inner strength was not bad. On the other side, there was a mocking laugh. I've long heard that Master Lai's guard, Master Lu, has been loyal all his life and has done many things for Master Lai. But today your Master Lu is also old. Go. The opponent sent out a 2-meter-tall burly man, who sneered and walked out. Seeing this, the people of Lai Jia village narrowed their eyes. So tall, Master Lu was already so old, how could they fight? The middle-aged man also narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, he remembered something from 10 years ago. At that time, he was young and frivolous. At that time, he had met a tall guard in Buddha Dao City. He wanted to buy him, but in the end nothing happened. But at that time, he knew that he had met an immortal. But later, he told this matter to his father. In the end, his father scolded him, and the entire Lija village laughed at him. Immortals might exist, but they only appeared in legends. Until now, who had ever seen an immortal? Bang bang bang. Sure enough, the fist was afraid of the young and strong. Master Lu was already old and couldn't block the opponent's attack. He was defeated in a few moves and was seriously injured. The opponent suddenly laughed sarcastically. The faces of the people of Lija village darkened. This time, if there was no water in the paddy fields, their Lija village wouldn't be able to survive. Master Lu. At this moment, the middle-aged man rushed over and helped the old man up. Chapter 40:13. Old Immortal. None of your business. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and sighed helplessly as he looked at the group of arrogant people. Young Master Lai, these are your guards? Haha, what a disappointment. You, young Master Lai, can't practice martial arts for the rest of your life, relying on the protection of your bodyguards. In the end, your bodyguards are all trash. The so-called bodyguards are all fake. Only your own strength is fundamental. Lu Zhen's leader laughed heartily. Nonsense. If you dared to say that to that young master 10 years ago in Buddha Dao City, his guards would definitely beat you up like a dog. The middle-aged man suddenly raised his head and said word by word. What do you mean by 10 years ago? Were you still dreaming of becoming an immortal? Let me tell you, my Lu townspeople are the strongest. No guards in this world can defeat them. Not to mention your Lai village. Now, cut off the water for me and let the Lai village eat shit. Lu Zhen's leader said in disdain. Really? Then I'll lend him a guard, and he'll definitely beat you up until you eat shit. However, at this moment, a handsome young man with a bodyguard slowly walked over from afar. The paddy field suddenly fell silent. Everyone frowned. Who were these two? They actually dared to speak so arrogantly. On the other hand, the middle-aged man frowned when he saw them. He kept having the feeling that they were very familiar. Suddenly, his pupils trembled and his entire body started to tremble. It's him. The young man from 10 years ago. Because what happened 10 years ago was like a miracle to him. He knew that the young man was an immortal, so he still couldn't forget the young man. It was just that no one believed him. Everyone treated him as an idiot. But now the facts proved that he was not wrong. Everyone had wronged him, especially his father. 10 years. The middle-aged man stood up and looked excitedly at the blue-robed young man. Beside him, Master Lu's entire body trembled because he was also in Buddha Dao City at that time. So he'd seen the mysterious blue-robed young man as well. However, 10 years had passed, yet that youth did not change at all. He did not age at all. The two of them became excited. They ran over and knelt down in front of the blue-robed young man. Lai Ba greets old immortal. Lu San greets old immortal. Plop! They kept kowtowing and tears of excitement flowed out of their eyes. Waha, old immortal? These two idiots. I've long heard that the head of the Lai village is abnormal. He often says that he has seen the old immortal. Now that I've seen him today, he really lives up to his reputation. In this world, where do immortals come from? There are all kinds of swindlers. No wonder Lija village fell into Lai Ba's hands and declined day by day. I think Lija village doesn't matter anymore. Come to Lu Town. Lu Town's people were stunned for a moment before laughing so hard that their stomachs hurt. That was because the blue-robed youth looked even younger than Lai Ba. Yet Lai Ba actually called him old immortal? If he wasn't stupid, then what was? This. The people from Lai village were stunned as well. Then they sighed and shook their heads, their faces filled with disappointment. Obviously, they had always been dissatisfied with Lai Ba. However, Lai Ba's father was the former manor lord, so they had to give him face. However, Lai Ba was indeed useless. He used 10 years to turn a flourishing manor into a declining one. If it wasn't for the old manor, they would have abandoned the manor long ago. And now, seeing Lai Ba kneeling and kowtowing to an old immortal made them feel incomparably humiliated. You're already so old. Do you still think you're the same as before? There should be a limit to lying. An old man from Lija village said in disappointment. I'm not lying. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly roared. His eyes were red and filled with stubbornness. Father! His son could not help but shout. However, from his son's expression, even he did not believe Lai Ba. This made Lai Ba bite his lips tightly and did not say a word. Get up. At this moment, the youth in front of them smiled and spoke. He helped Lai Ba and his son up, then looked at Lu townspeople. Kid, what are you looking at? You can lie to that idiot Lai Ba, but you can't lie to us. This has nothing to do with you. Scram. Or don't blame us for teaching you a lesson. The man leading Lu Town suddenly shouted coldly. However, the blue-robed youth ignored them. He looked at Lai Ba and said, we met 10 years ago, and now we meet again 10 years later. This means that you and I are fated. Let me help you this time. Thank you, old immortal. Hearing this, Lai Ba and his men became excited. However, this also caused more mocking laughter from all around. Even now, you still think of him as an old immortal? When will your immortal dream end? Why don't you call me father? How about that? Someone from Lu Town said contemptuously. I'll send a guard for Lai Ba. All of you come at me together. If you win, this gold will belong to you. However, at this moment, the blue-robed youth said calmly. With a wave of his right hand, a large amount of gold sprinkled down. The surroundings instantly fell silent. Lu Town's people narrowed their eyes. The leader even sneered, are you serious? Yes, and if we lose, Lai Jia village will belong to you. The blue-robed youth said again. Hey, who do you think you are to speak for Lai Jia village? Village Master Lai, is this what you mean? Bullshit. Naturally, Lai Jia village's people would not agree. Old immortal's words are law. However, Lai Ba seemed to be blinded by lard and agreed immediately. This angered Lai Jia village's people, and made them even more disappointed. A gentleman keeps his word. Since Village Master Lai has agreed, then let's begin. As for Lu Town's people, they naturally would not miss such an opportunity. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Almost 100 of them immediately rushed out and pounced on Lai Ba. The blue-robed youth nodded at the bodyguard behind him, and the bodyguard slowly walked out. It's over. With so many people attacking one person, even a tiger would be beaten to death. Lai Ba has been stupid his whole life. Even on his deathbed, he's still so stupid. I don't have eyes to see anymore. I'm afraid that bodyguard's bones have been torn apart. Lai Jia village's people were ashen and sighed repeatedly. Rumble. However, at this moment there was a loud rumble. Almost 100 people rushed over, but the bodyguard's feet stomped heavily on the ground. The ground instantly cracked and everyone was sent flying. Silence. At the edge of the paddy field, there was a deathly silence. Everyone's mouth was wide open. One must know that Lu Town's people were all burly men. Each of them weighed at least 200 jin. They could even kill an elephant. However, the bodyguard sent them flying with a single kick. What the hell, what kind of bodyguard is this? He's so powerful. Did you see that? He's the bodyguard I met 10 years ago. Now, do you still dare to say that I'm lying? In the silence, the middle-aged man with a radish head looked at the crowd and said solemnly. His words silenced everyone. Could it be that he's really old immortal? Senior. Lu Town's leader reacted and quickly knelt down. To be able to send their experts flying with a single kick, the other party is definitely not weak. You said that I'm an idiot. Now who's the idiot? Lai Ba also looked at the leader as if he was venting all the grievances he had suffered all these years. Chapter 40:14. Daoyuo Heaven Realm. It's been 10 years and I've never lied to anyone. Although I don't have any ability, I've done my best for the Lai family village. I know you all look down on me and still treat me as the trash young master from back then. But let me tell you, I'm no longer the young master who doesn't know anything. Father gave the Lai family village to me, and I want it to prosper. Seeing that no one spoke, Lai Ba said word by word. His voice made the surroundings even quieter. The people of the Lai family village looked at Lai Ba with a different gaze. Indeed, young Master Lai doesn't have any ability, but he did put in a lot of effort for the Lai family village. Father, I didn't lie to you. Then Lai Ba looked at the sky and said while gritting his teeth. Before his father died, he still thought that he couldn't do anything big and still thought that he was dreaming. But now he proved that all of this wasn't his dream, because the immortal he saw 10 years ago was real. He persevered for 10 years and was mocked for 10 years. But now, all of his perseverance had the corresponding result. I'll leave this guard for you. Just when he was excited, the blue-robed youth beside him suddenly smiled. With a wave of his right hand, a 2-meter-tall guard appeared. It looked like a puppet. You and I are connected by fate, so I'll help you a bit more. I'll leave this bottle of pills for you. It will allow you to be reborn. But remember, power is used to protect your home, not to bully others. If I find out in the future that you use your power to bully others, then I'll take back whatever I gave you. The blue-robed youth said again, then turned and left. Your area lacks rain, so I'll make it rain. The youth gradually disappeared into the distance, but everyone saw that he waved his hand lightly. Rumble. Suddenly in the sky thunder rumbled and dark clouds rolled. Then a drop of rain began to fall, gradually increasing until it was a downpour. Your area lacks rain, so I'll make it rain. Everyone was bathed in the rain, and this sentence lingered in their minds. I'll make it rain so it will rain. How domineering. Old immortal. Bang. Plop. At this moment, everyone believed Tyrant's words. There really were immortals in this world, but they were like frogs at the bottom of a well. They thought the well they saw was the entire sky. Old immortal. Lai Ba and Master Lu also knelt down and kowtowed. More tears flowed out of their eyes. Without a doubt, from today onwards, their Lai family manor would have another stone sculpture. That stone sculpture was impressively the appearance of the blue-robed youth, and it was also the totem and symbol of their Lai family manor. It was worshipped by countless descendants of the Lai family manor, and it had been passed down for thousands of years. Many years later, Lai Jia village became the largest country in this realm. Of course, this wasn't something that the blue-robed young man would know. He just happened to meet the young Master Radish from 10 years ago, and decided to help him along the way. At this moment, after the young man rushed out of the void, his gaze landed in the distance. Then, he turned into a beam of light and shot forward. It's been 10 years. I wonder what the final world is like. The blue-robed youth's speed was very fast. He flew past the western world, and after a day, he finally arrived at the intersection of the 10,000 worlds. However, the youth also saw that the 10,000 worlds today seemed to be a bit different. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the distant void, many figures flew across the void like meteors. It was extremely dazzling. If one looked carefully, they were not meteors but powerful warriors. Rumble. In the distance there were meteorites that were shot from the void. However, those warriors were not afraid at all. With a punch, the meteorites that were comparable to islands exploded. Their strength was undoubtedly extremely fierce. On the other side, a dragon-like black centipede was swimming in the void. Speed was extremely fast. As it twisted its body and swam, it kept spitting out poisonous substances. The poisonous substances were constantly scattered and landed on some of the weaker realms. It was enough to put those realms in a terrible situation. Why are there so many martial gods all of a sudden? The blue-robed youth suddenly stopped and frowned as he looked ahead. This was because this was the 10,000 worlds. Generally speaking, there should not be so many experts. Sir, do you know where the Daoyuo Heaven realm is? While the blue-robed youth was in a daze, 5 figures flew over from not far away. They looked at the youth and asked coldly, I don't know. The blue-robed youth frowned and replied coldly, Damn it, do you know or not? If you delay our time, I'll make you suffer. Among the 5 people, a man in black robes cursed angrily. They had hurried all the way here from the final world to find Taoist Duobao. However, it was said that Taoist Duobao had returned from the Road of Rulers and appeared in the Daoyuo Heaven realm. Zhongma, don't complicate matters. However, an old man beside the man immediately said coldly, judging from his strength, he was a 4th-level martial god. His strength was not weak. Consider yourself lucky. Hearing that, the man did not want to be meddlesome. He wanted to leave with the others. However, as soon as they took a step forward, they suddenly felt a mysterious force enveloping their bodies. It had sealed all their strength. What happened? What? Why is my talent sealed? What? My realm origin has weakened a lot. What? The expressions of those people changed drastically. Then their eyes flickered. They knew they had encountered an expert. Immediately, they said respectfully to the surroundings, Senior, What can I do for you? Yes. Their hearts rumbled. The strength of the person who had sealed their strength unknowingly must be more than 100 times greater than theirs. What happened in the Daoyuo heaven realm? Why are there so many experts here? Yes. At this moment, a voice finally rang out behind them. When they turned around, their eyes trembled fiercely. The person who had walked over was the blue-robed young man from before. Was it this guy who had sealed their strength? They had thought this guy was very weak. How could they know that they had been sealed by Linling's God Steps? Currently, the power of God Steps had increased along with the increase of Linling's soul power. So, it was not difficult to seal these people. After all, these people's talents were only at the 8th grade. This? Yes. Don't say it. Yes. However, although the 5 people seemed to be in awe of the blue-robed young man, they were obviously more cautious when it came to the Daoyuo heaven realm. Seeing this, the young man shook his head. With a flick of his finger, several strands of golden flame shot out and landed on the 5 people. The 5 people's strength had been sealed, so they could not resist at all. What kind of flame is this? It's actually drilling into my dantian. Quickly destroy it, but damn it, our realm origin has been sealed. How can we destroy it? We're done for. I'll blow, I must blow out this flame. Chapter 40:15. Daoist Duo Bao. After the golden flames rushed into their dantian, they were originally the size of fireflies, but they instantly ignited and burned their dantian, turning it into a golden color. The bodies of the 5 people instantly trembled. When they raised their heads to look at the blue-robed youth again, a wisp of worship appeared in their eyes. Greetings, human king. They knelt down at the same time. That worship came from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if the blue-robed youth was their king, their totem, and also their belief. Their entire lives belonged to the human king, including their birth and death. What's the matter with the Daoyuo heaven realm? It must be something extraordinary to be able to attract so many martial god realm experts. The blue-robed youth smiled as he spoke indifferently. One of the 5 said respectfully, Human king, Daoist Duo Bao has appeared. Daoist Duo Bao? The blue-robed youth frowned slightly. Daoist master of many treasures is an extraordinary person. No one knows where he came from and no one knows who he belongs to. However, he is a merchant who specializes in selling treasures, so he is also called Daoist Master of Many Treasures. This time, I heard that he escaped from the Road of Rulers and found many treasures. Because he was forced by various experts, he sold all the treasures on him in the Daoyuo heaven realm. We came for those treasures. It's said that Daoist Duo Bao went to the battlefield of the gods' era and plundered many treasures of the gods. Moreover, it's said that this fellow has also traded with the gods. The 5 people spoke one after another. The blue-robed youth's eyes lit up. There's actually such a miraculous person in the 9 prefectures? Then he asked, what's his strength? He's just an old man in the martial ancestor realm. I heard that he's very weak and was once beaten up like a dog. Hearing the human king's question, the youngest man immediately said with a beaming smile, his face filled with disdain. Hearing that, the blue-robed youth shook his head and declined to comment. Moreover, he planned to go to the Daoyuo heaven realm to take a look. After all, he needed many treasures to break through and he planned to open his 7th dantian. I'll give you 3 incense sticks worth of time to find the Daoyuo heaven realm. Then the blue-robed youth waved his hand and issued an order. Yes, human king. Those people didn't dare to disobey. In fact, they were incomparably happy. It was as if being able to help the human king was their glory. This was the might of a human king. Not only did it rely on domineering methods to control the other party, it also assimilated the other party's dantian, forming a belief. Linling, this Daoist master of many treasures, isn't simple. Moreover, I seem to have some impression of this name. Meanwhile, one of the ghosts by the blue-robed young man's side spoke with bewilderment. They were none other than Linling and the giant ghost. Have you heard of it? If you have an impression of him, then this Daoist master of many treasures isn't simple. I'm afraid he's a character from the era of gods. In these people's mouths, this guy called Daoist master of many treasures seems to be very weak, but in my opinion, that strange guy isn't that weak. Linling said with a smile. The giant ghost nodded in agreement. That's right. Even though he possesses a great treasure, he was still able to survive for so many years. There's no way he could do that without some trump cards. Let's go take a look. Perhaps there are treasures that we need. Lin Ling wasn't in a hurry to return. After all, this Taoist master of many treasures was a humanoid store that could only be encountered by chance. Hide your aura to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Soon after, Lin Ling used the aura concealment technique taught by the giant ghost and changed his entire aura. At this moment, he was wearing a black robe. His long hair was draped over his shoulders, and his facial features were grave and stern. Most importantly, countless tentacles had appeared behind him, hanging down like wings. Dense underworld aura was also emanating from him from time to time, making him seem like a ghost king. Of course, the underworld aura aside, golden flames would appear on his shoulders from time to time. The combination of the flames and the Yin aura gave off an even more unique feeling. The chaotic aura, in addition to your other powers being hidden, means that unless you encounter a mirror like the one in Heaven Pass City, ordinary people won't be able to see your origin. The giant ghost nodded and quietly transformed into a fist-sized skeleton. Looking behind Lin Ling, the platinum evil spirit also transformed into a 2-meter-tall skeleton. However, this skeleton was golden and had a faint layer of flames on its surface. Those were the flames of the Human King. Human King, we found him. At this time, the 5 people had finally returned and caught a tongue. The tongue looked quite young and seemed to be a disciple of the 36th college. However, his cultivation was very ordinary, only at the late stage of the martial ancestor realm. Greetings, seniors. I know where the Daoyuo Heaven realm is. I'll lead the way immediately. Please spare my life. After the young man arrived, his gaze swept around and fell on Lin Ling. He hurriedly knelt down in the air and said, apparently, he had been kidnapped by the 5 people. However, after arriving, he found that the person behind the scenes was even more terrifying. His long hair was draped over his shoulders, and he had ghost wings behind his back. However, there was also a flame aura around him. He gave off the feeling that he was a ghost emperor from the underworld. I am the underworld human emperor. Who is in the Daoyuo Heaven realm right now? Seeing the other party's tactful appearance, Lin Ling smiled and said coldly, many experts have gone there. Many experts from the 36th college have also gone there. However, I heard that many of the top 100 experts on the stairway to heaven have also gone there. This is because spiritual master Duobao is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. The young man immediately said respectfully, okay, lead the way immediately. Lin Ling immediately nodded. Then, under the guidance of the person, they flew toward the southern border. Originally, Lin Ling also wanted to assimilate the young man. However, because the other party's strength was too low, Lin Ling was too lazy to do it in the end. As he followed the group, Lin Ling also found that there were more experts heading toward the Daoyuo Heaven realm. There were many experts from various colleges and many unknown old monsters. Why are there suddenly so many experts? Lin Ling was a little surprised. Underworld Human Emperor, these experts have always been there. However, they rarely appear in the southern border. Most of them are wandering in forbidden areas or the land of divine treasures. That's why you rarely see them. Someone immediately said respectfully. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. Then, he looked at the young man from the college and asked, what experts do you have in your college? Senior, our academy only has 3 people who are ranked in the top 200 on the celestial stairway. Among the 3 of them, only one of them is ranked in the top 100 on the celestial stairway. I heard that this time the top 100 experts have also come, said the young man respectfully. Looking at his respectful appearance, Lin Ling sighed inwardly. If the young man knew that the underworld human emperor, whom he respected, was actually just a student of the college, what would he think at that time? Your college is so weak? Chapter 40:16. They had arrived at the Daoyuo Heaven realm. Our academy's ranking is not very high. It is said that experts from the top 4 academies have also come. They are the Sky Sword Academy, Miaoshan Academy, Wuwei Academy, and E Garden. The young man said immediately. Interesting. I have heard that the 36 academies have countless experts and are outstanding. Today I have the chance to see them. Lin Ling's interest was piqued. No matter how powerful the experts are, how can they be compared to senior? When the young man heard this, he immediately flattered him. In his heart, the man called Mingren Emperor was so cold that he did not dare to look him in the eye. Therefore, he guessed that this expert was probably a very old monster. While they were talking, an ancient world finally appeared in front of them. It was the Daoyuo Heaven Realm. Speaking of which, the Daoyuo Heaven Realm had an inexplicable relationship with Jojo. It was said that it was a place where an emperor of the Yin state retired after he retired. Therefore, the Daoyuo Heaven Realm was very prosperous. The overall strength of the martial artists was not weak, second only to the Qing state. Of course, compared to the experts from the final world, these martial artists were very weak. Therefore, in the face of these experts from all over the world, the local martial artists chose to hide and did not dare to participate in this muddy water. Zhao Tianjiao? Why are you here? Aren't you with the experts from your academy? Who are they? When entering the Daoyuo Heaven Realm, many experts from the academies, dressed in neat robes, flew over from afar. Naturally, they saw the young man in front of Lin Ling, and some of them knew him. Of course, when they looked around, their eyes quietly fell on Lin Ling and the others. They immediately knew that these people were old monsters who had cultivated for many years and had returned from some forbidden area. Shut up. Don't you know who this lord is? Hearing the ridicule in the other party's tone, the young man called Zhao Tianjiao in front of Lin Ling also snorted coldly, then respectfully pointed to Lin Ling behind him and said, "This is Brother D, a true expert. Haven't you heard of him? My brother D in Void is a man of few words." Hearing this, the expressions of the experts from the various academies changed. They weren't weak, so they naturally sensed the mysterious aura on Lin Ling's body. He could be called a ghost emperor. "Senior, I've offended you before." At that moment, everyone cupped their hands and bowed. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Therefore, after bowing, they didn't dare to stay any longer and took the lead to leave with their tails between their legs. "Humph." The young man named Zhao Tianjiao smiled proudly. "Lead the way. If you speak any more nonsense, don't blame me for killing you." Lin Ling shook his head and said indifferently. He naturally knew that this guy named Zhao Tianjiao was using him to show off his prestige. Yes. Zhao Tianjiao's face paled, and he hurriedly led the way. After a short moment, they finally arrived at the Daoyuo Heaven Realm. Looking around, the environment here was pretty good. There were green mountains and clear waters, and birds were chirping and flowers were fragrant. Moreover, there were numerous ancient cities built on the ground, and it seemed to be thriving. Of course, because of the arrival of foreign experts, many of these formerly prosperous cities were empty, and the people had fled. Lin Ling drove Zhao Tianjiao away and led a few people forward. "Where is Taoist Duo Bao? Have you inquired about him?" Lin Ling asked the few people. "My lord, Taoist Duo Bao has always been sneaky. He only said that he would come to this world. When he really appears, someone will definitely inform him. This has always been his rule. My lord, we will go wherever there are experts. We should be able to see Taoist Duo Bao there. Now I will go and inquire about some information." The few people spoke one after another. Then, a few of them took the lead and went ahead to inquire about information. Lin Ling nodded indifferently. However, on the way, he asked again, "I heard that Taoist Duo Bao returned from the Road of Domination. What kind of place is the Road of Domination? From your tone, it seems that very few people have been there." "My lord, that is one of the 7 great forbidden lands of the 9 prefectures. I heard that it is the place where the gods of the past advanced to become gods. It is an ancient road, but it is extremely terrifying. So far, no one has ever reached the end. Moreover, out of 10,000 people who entered, only 10 came out, and those who came out went crazy. Taoist Duo Bao is one of the few people who could enter the Road of Domination and return safely." The one who was still following behind Lin Ling was a relatively young man. At this moment he spoke respectfully. "The 7 great forbidden lands of the 9 prefectures." Lin Ling's eyes flashed. At present, he knew that the 7 great forbidden lands were the 8 gods' heavenly palace, Eternal Forbidden Forest, Rainbow World, Kai Yuan River, Starry Sky Forest, One World Mountain, and the Road of Domination. This meant that the 7 great forbidden lands had all appeared. Moreover, Linling had explored several great forbidden lands. Each of them had its own mysteries, but it was undeniable that each of them was related to the era of gods. Moreover, although Linling had explored several great forbidden lands, he had only explored the tip of the iceberg. The one he was most familiar with was the Kai Yuan River. As for One World Mountain and the Road of Domination, Linling had only heard of them. He had never seen them. "My lord, I heard that the Road of Domination is littered with treasures. Unfortunately, not only is it dangerous but not many people know where the Road of Domination is," the man said again. Linling nodded. He guessed that the Road of Domination should be the same as the Rainbow World. It was a secret realm that could only be discovered by chance. "It seems that Taoist Duo Bao is more powerful than I imagined," Linling said inwardly. "My lord, this way. I see more experts here. If Taoist Duo Bao appears, he should be there." At this moment, an old man flew back from afar and said with a smile. Linling nodded coldly. It had to be said that it was convenient to have a follower. After all the experts landed in the Daoyuo Heaven realm, their final destination was the Mountain River City. After that, another old man came back from scouting for information. In fact, there was no need for him to scout for information. Linling's soul power had clearly sensed that in the ancient land and sky, countless experts were like locusts, gathering towards a huge city. Presumably, that was the place where Taoist Duo Bao was about to appear. Linling's lips curled into a smile. He was looking forward to the next journey even more. Previously, when he was roughly investigating, he had sensed a few familiar figures. He had not expected that those guys would also come. As he moved forward, more than 10 experts appeared on the road ahead. It seemed that they were all at the early and middle stage of the martial god realm. Moreover, they were not young. They were all old monsters who had cultivated for many years. And they were blocking the road in the middle of the road to collect tolls. Chapter 40:17. Are you going to pay or not? The leader was a bare-chested old man with a head of red hair. At this moment he said coldly, "Don't even think about using any divine ability to sneak in. Let me tell you, the sky and earth have been sealed by us. We are from the same alliance and we have more people than you can imagine. If you break the rules, you will die. We won't give you any face." His voice was cold, but it also carried a strong domineering aura. "What right do you have to collect tolls?" However, among the crowd, there were also experts who spoke unwillingly. The weakest among the experts here was at least a peak martial progenitor, while the half-martial god realm experts were as numerous as the hairs on an ox. Furthermore, there were martial god realm experts present, thus they could not accept the humiliation of paying the price. You talk too much nonsense." The red-haired old man snorted coldly. His long hair shot out like the tentacles of an octopus, aiming at the person who spoke. Good timing. However, since the other party dared to speak, he was naturally not someone to be trifled with. He also unleashed his strength. Unfortunately, the red-haired old man's talent was a 9th-grade ultimate desolate body. Although he did not have divine power, his ancestral power had reached the peak. Therefore, he wrapped around the warrior, and by the time all the red hair dispersed, the warrior had already turned into a pool of blood. Chi. Seeing this, many people immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. What powerful strength! They were not shocked by the old man's cruel methods. After all, to be able to come here, everyone had seen great storms. They were only shocked by the other party's talent. However, although the old man was overbearing, he also knew that many of the people who had come to the Daoyuo Heaven realm were people their alliance could not afford to offend. Therefore, he said, "The reason why we collect tolls is not because we are overbearing, but because we were the first to discover Shanha City and we were the ones who spread the news. Therefore, it is normal to collect tolls. Just treat it as payment for our hard work." His words were very good. It could be considered as giving face to those experts they could not afford to offend. Motherfucker. The weaker people cursed inwardly. However, for the sake of Taoist Master Duo Bao, they endured it and paid to pass. Behind the crowd, Linling watched this scene indifferently. Then he sneered and led the 5 people and bodyguards forward. Since he had practiced martial arts until now, he had naturally seen many cases of overbearing people collecting tolls. Although he had no interest in stopping the other party's wealth, it was obviously impossible for them to take his money. "Sirs, are you?" The dozen or so powerhouses blocking the road immediately looked at Lin Ling's group. The red-haired old man frowned, but he didn't dare to speak arrogantly. Scram! With Lin Ling leading the way, the ghost Taoist master to him, the evil spirit's aura instantly permeated the air, and it was mixed with an irresistible majesty of the fire element. The old man's expression changed as he carefully sized up Lin Ling. He immediately treated Lin Ling as a ghost emperor who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. This fellow had ghost chi all over his body. He was not to be trifled with. Of the he obviously didn't dare to collect any tolls. And Lin Ling led the group forward, making the experts behind envious. This was the privilege of the strong. That cold man was obviously an overlord. "I'm so envious." After Lin Ling's group, it was not long before another group of people took their turn. These people looked at Lin Ling's group enviously and shook their heads helplessly. "Seniors, we have 6 people. Can you give us 50 million Emperor crystals? After all, that's all we have. We can't take out more." The young man in the lead said in a pleading tone. These people were obviously from the 36 academies. However, they were also the strongest people in the 3 divine halls. They had been in the void for a long time and knew that there were some people they could not afford to offend. "Do you think we're idiots? You're going to see Taoist Master Duo Bao. You must want to buy some treasure, so how can you only have 50 million Emperor crystals? Sorry, 60 million Emperor crystals. You can't go there for less." The red-haired old man looked at the people in front of him and said contemptuously, "Of course, if you can't afford it, you can go back and try your luck in other places. After all, there might be more opportunities like the Kaiyuan River. You can participate in the god shop opened by the gods." "You." The young man in the lead was angry. However, the other party raised their chins and looked at him coldly. This made the young man compromise. "Brother Woody, these guys are too evil." However, even if they compromised, they were still unwilling to accept it. "Forget it." The young man in the lead shook his head. "Brother Woody?" At this moment, Lin Ling, who had already walked far away, suddenly stopped in his tracks. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then, he said to the people beside him, "Go and bring those people here." Brother Woody. How could Lin Ling not know him? He was a few friends that Lin Ling met at the E-Garden Martial Arts Exchange. When Lin Ling went to the Kaiyuan River, they were the ones who told Lin Ling where the entrance to the Kaiyuan River was. He didn't expect to see them again today. "Following our Lord's orders, we're taking these people away." Just as the red-haired old man and the others were about to collect the money, a voice suddenly came from behind. The old man looked back and his face instantly turned ugly. It was the cold man from before. "Sir, are you playing with us? If the 6 of them were your people, you could have brought them in and we wouldn't have taken a single cent. Now that you've gone in and come back to say that you want to take them away, you've broken the rules and are looking down on us." The old man said word by word. Although he was very afraid of the cold man, the man's actions were also challenging their prestige, because this would make it difficult for them to collect money later on, and their troubles would increase by a lot. "Don't waste time with us. Just tell us, are you going to give or not?" However, although the red-haired old man was fierce, the newcomers were even more fierce. They didn't even bother to listen to nonsense, only one sentence. How domineering. The eyes of the experts who were lining up in the distance lit up when they saw that they were ignoring them, and the envy in their eyes grew stronger. The red-haired old man suddenly gritted his teeth and exchanged glances with the experts beside him. In the end, his face turned fierce. "No." The other party was pointing at their noses and acting arrogantly. If they backed down, the next people wouldn't take them seriously. Unfortunately, they met Lin Ling. They had to give it to him even if they didn't want to. Almost at the same time, the jellyfish that filled the sky flew over, mixed with the terrifying aura of evil spirits and wisps of the human monarch's flame. These are evil spirits? Chapter 40:18. My brother Ghost is a man of few words. You're courting death. The red-haired old man's face turned cold. He could roughly sense that the talent of these evil spirit jellyfish was not higher than his. It seemed that he had been intimidated by the aura of the stern man, and the stern man was clearly not as strong as he had imagined. Swoosh! His talent also erupted. His red hair soared into the sky, drowning the sky like the sunset as he fought against the evil spirit jellyfish. Looking from the ground, the scene was incomparably spectacular. The collision between the red hair and the jellyfish. Swoosh! However, after the endless red hair collided with the jellyfish, it immediately ignited. Surging golden flames shocked everyone's eyes. Ah! The red-haired old man let out a painful cry, and his expression changed greatly. After colliding with the evil spirit jellyfish, he felt a terrifying pressure enveloping him, making him feel as if he had seen the King of Gods. The terrifying golden flames immediately followed his red hair and enveloped the old man's body, burning him to the point that he rolled around in pain. Using his talent to fight against the divine fetus, he was clearly overestimating himself. Give. Senior, spare me. At this moment, the red-haired old man let out an anxious voice. However, it was clearly too slow this time. The martial god realm expert was burned into nothingness by the golden flames. When the result was revealed, the surrounding experts swallowed their saliva with difficulty. The red-haired old man was a middle-stage martial god realm expert. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. No matter how weak he was, he should not have been killed in a single move. However, the result was that he could not block a single move. What a terrifying ghost emperor! Everyone was so shocked, not to mention the people beside the red-haired old man. They were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They directly knelt on the ground and kept shouting, "Senior, spare me, spare me." They had long known that many experts from the Daluo Heaven realm had come this time, but they had never imagined that they would encounter one. However, the stern man in the distance was too lazy to pay attention to them. Instead, he asked his subordinates to bring the 6 people over. "Come over, they don't dare to take your money." Therefore, among the 6 people, an old man said proudly, Thank you. Brother Woody had been dumbfounded at first, but when he came back to his senses, he bowed profusely. On top of that, his heart was pounding non-stop. These old monsters who had returned from the Forbidden Lands were too fucking terrifying. He had killed a middle-stage martial god by releasing a jellyfish. TSK. He had killed someone from 1,000 miles away. They were both envious and fearful. What he was envious of was the fact that the other party was so powerful that he had special privileges wherever he went. They were afraid because they didn't know the origins of the Cold Man. If the Cold Man wanted to kill them, then they would probably be no match for him even if they fought with their lives on the line. With apprehension, Brother Invincible and the others finally arrived in front of Lin Ling. Then they glanced at Lin Ling and lowered their heads, not daring to look again. Lin Ling was also looking at them. A smile finally appeared on his cold face. "Brother Woody, long time no see. How have you been?" The voice stunned Brother Invincible. He blinked several times. This voice was so familiar. He couldn't help but raise his head in shock. Suddenly, he shouted, "Big Brother Lin Ling?" Looks like Brother Invincible's reaction is quite fast. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. "What the fuck? I thought it was some old monster. So it's Big Brother Lin Ling. Anyway, my name is Zhang Wudi. You don't have to call me Big Brother. I don't deserve it." Brother Invincible was overjoyed. When he had parted ways with Lin Ling at the bank of the Kaiyuan River, he had heard about Lin Ling's endless legends. This abnormal guy had even killed a god. However, when he wanted to go to the Snow Wind Academy to congratulate Lin Ling, he heard that Lin Ling had disappeared. He even received news that countless experts in the final world wanted to kill Lin Ling and plunder Lin Ling. "Where have you been? I haven't seen you for more than 10 years. The final world is currently plundering you. No, you have to be quiet. Don't let others discover you." Brother Invincible was obviously very excited and kept talking. Looking at the excited Brother Invincible, Lin Ling's smile became wider. "Don't worry, I actually dared to say the name Lin Ling. This means that I'm not afraid of those people plundering me. I'm just avoiding unnecessary trouble." "Big Brother Lin Ling, you're awesome. Big Brother, no little brother kneels to you. Before, I really thought you were a cold old monster. But you're just a student of the academy. Ha ha ha, this is too interesting. Next you have to protect me. Big brother Linling, you've become so strong now. You won't abandon me, right? Brother Invincible put his hand on Linling's shoulder and laughed. At this moment he finally understood one of the rules of the final world. Unless you have absolute strength, you can go anywhere with a strong backer. Obviously, Linling was his strong backer. However, his friendly behavior undoubtedly made the five people's faces turn cold. They seemed to be angry at Brother Invincible's rudeness. However, they were also a little surprised because the impression the Human King gave them was one of dignity and coldness. Therefore, this was the first time they saw the Human King reveal such a friendly appearance. That idiotic Brother Invincible, one had to admit that his luck was too good. He actually knew the Human King. Sure, let's go. If anyone bullies you, tell them my name. Linling didn't care about Brother Invincible's rudeness at all because in his heart, Brother Invincible was his friend. Brother Invincible had helped him at the Kaiyuan River. Moreover, he, Linling, wasn't some grave and stern ghost emperor. Linling was still Linling. The reason why he was grave and stern was because he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. Okay, my ghost brother in the void is ruthless and doesn't talk much. I want to see who dares to provoke us now. Brother Invincible and the others laughed excitedly and followed Linling towards the mountain river city. After a while, the ancient mountain river city appeared. It had to be said that this huge ancient city was extremely unique. Looking from afar, the buildings were built like ancient mountains, layer upon layer. No wonder it was called Mountain River City. At this moment, a large number of experts had gathered in the city, and there were even more experts rushing over. If these experts were placed in the 9 prefectures, each of them would be ambitious and ruthless, godlike existences. Now that they were all gathered here, it could be seen how attractive Taoist Master of Myriad Treasures was. At this moment, they were also waiting for the appearance of Taoist Master of Myriad Treasures. But Mountain River City was very large, so the powerhouses were scattered all over the city. Gradually, the city became overcrowded with people. But subconsciously, they divided up the area according to their strength. The weaker ones could only wait on the streets, while the stronger ones could rest in restaurants and inns. Chapter 40:19. Ask someone to get out. As a result, although Shanha City was bustling with noise, a murderous and depressing atmosphere was spreading. It was like the Age of Heroes where only the real heroes could do whatever they wanted. At this moment, a large number of people had gathered in a relatively quiet restaurant. Some were drinking wine, while others were resting with their eyes closed. Numerous voices of laughter and chatter were also quietly emitted. However, although there were a lot of people in the restaurant, it wasn't crowded because those who were weak were chased out. I'm sorry, but we're interested in this table. Piss off. At this time, a large number of experts entered the restaurant. Then, these experts swept their gazes and landed on one of the chairs. Following that, they began to chase people away domineeringly. I was wondering who it was, so it's Wanitian. Looks like he's become more arrogant after following the Empress. Someone on that table raised his head and said indifferently, I heard that you were chasing after Linling, but in the end, not only did you not get anything from him, you were beaten to a pulp. That's why it's better to know your place. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're in the top 220 on the divine ladder. That's the newcomer King Linling, a newcomer. As soon as he finished speaking, many people looked at the person who spoke. Then people began to discuss among themselves. That's Dong Wunla from Wu Wei College. He's in the top 220 on the divine ladder. Wu Wei College, the third college among the 36 colleges. Dong Wunla must be quite strong to be able to come from there. However, Wanitian isn't weak either. It's going to be a good show. Whispers quietly sounded out. Of course, there were also people who curiously asked, Newcomer King Linling? Isn't that guy the newcomer king now? Why is he called Linling now? Idiot, have you forgotten what happened 10 years ago? The one who killed Wantian martial god is the newcomer King Linling. The newcomer king only dared to appear after Linling disappeared. Ah, I remember now. Isn't that guy dead? Who knows if he's dead or not? However, it's true that he disappeared for 10 years. Many people think that even if he's not dead, he'll be captured by the Empress. After all, Anyone who dares to provoke the Empress won't have a good ending. Voices constantly drifted out, but as the people were discussing in secret, the two experts had already made their moves. The result was that the expert called Dong Wunla was defeated and sent flying out of the restaurant. This caused many people to be shocked. Looking at Wen Nitian again, he had already led his people to occupy the seats and was leisurely drinking wine. No matter what you say, that's all you are. Now get out of here. If you're unwilling, I'll give you 3 moves. Of course, if you can't beat me in 3 moves, don't blame me, I'll kill you. After he sat Nitian, Wen Nitian shook his wine Nitian and said, how awe-inspiring and carefree was that look on his face. You Dong Wunla, you the expert called Dong Wunla snorted. Naturally, he knew why Wen Nitian didn't kill him. It was because there were experts nearby, and Wen Nitian didn't dare to provoke them. Otherwise, why would Wen Nitian be so easy to talk to? This was the myriad world, not the final world. If there was a chance, Wen Nitian wouldn't be lenient. Just you wait, I'll call my boss. You're dead. Dong Wunla brought his men and ran away with his tail between his legs. He's calling for help? Many people's eyes lit up. They also knew that the strongest expert that appeared in this restaurant was ranked in the top 200 on the stairway to heaven. However, the experts that appeared in the Daluo heaven realm this time were ranked in the top 100. Those people were like dazzling stars. They didn't even bother to appear in a small restaurant. They had already gone to fight for territory with those powerful old monsters. What a useless piece of trash. If you can't win, you can only call for help. However, Wen Nitian sneered, fearless. Looks like Wen Nitian is also confident. The experts from his school must be nearby. Everyone immediately guessed. In the final world, unless one's strength is heaven-defying, it depends on one's background and connections. This Wen Nitian dares to be so fearless. Obviously, his background isn't weak. He's the Empress's man. How weak can his background be? I really envy this guy. He's strong and has a strong background. Looking at Wen Nitian, who was drinking without restraint, many people's eyes flashed with a touch of envy. However, at this moment, a large number of people entered the restaurant, attracting a lot of attention. However, what surprised everyone was that the man in the lead was very unfamiliar. No one had seen him before. Moreover, the handsome man was very strange. He had a pair of tentacle wings behind his back and was dressed in a black robe. He was full of mystery. Of course, not only was the man's aura cold, even his attitude was incomparably arrogant. His gaze swept across the restaurant and suddenly fell on Wen Nitian. The corner of his mouth quietly revealed a smile. I didn't expect it to be this guy. This man was naturally Lin Ling. Therefore, when he saw Wen Nitian, he was inexplicably happy. After all, he remembered that when his strength was sealed 10 years ago, that guy was extremely proud. Now that he met him again, he had to admit that that guy's luck was very bad. In the past, when he was escaping, many people helped him, Lin Ling, and many people harmed him. Lin Ling remembered all of this clearly. Today he returned. What hatred and what hatred! Lin Ling would repay them one by one. Have you figured out where this place is? After that, Lin Ling looked at Brother Invincible, who was walking over from afar, and asked. Brother Invincible and the others were all disciples of the academy. After they came in, they began to gather information. Therefore, they were clear about the rules of the restaurant. Next, they told Lin Ling the rules that they knew. Interesting. In that case, get those guys out of here. Lin Ling did not care about the rules at all. However, since there were rules, he would play with them. After all, it was boring waiting for Jinren of many treasures. Brother Ghost, which one? Hearing this, Brother Invincible's eyes suddenly lit up. Although he knew that the people present were very strong, he also knew that Brother Ghost beside him was the #1 newcomer king 10 years ago. Brother Ghost even dragged down Wentian martial god, one of the top 10 martial gods. Therefore, he had nothing to be afraid of. When they heard Lin Ling and the others talking without restraint, many people secretly sneered. They did not know the stern man, but they had more or less interacted with Brother Invincible. They knew that he was a person who was good at flattering. That was all. Moreover, the stern man looked very strong, but one had to know that those who could appear here were not weaklings. Therefore, they wanted to see who these guys wanted to get out of here. That dog. Chapter 40-20. When defying the heavens. Seeing this, Nityan and the others narrowed their eyes and slammed the table. However, Nityan smiled faintly and stopped the angry people. Calm down, these people are new here and don't know any better. Soon they will realize that they chose the wrong person. That's true. Let's see if they still dare to be arrogant later. That's right. The people around him laughed. With Nityan here, they had nothing to worry about. Are you deaf? Brother Ghost asked you to get lost, didn't you hear him? Go. At this moment, Brother Woody walked over with a few people. This guy wasn't strong, but he had guts. He wasn't afraid of Nityan and the rest. You're talking to me. Go. Nityan toyed with the wine cup in his hand and said with a faint smile. Bang. However, Brother Woody came to their table and took the wine jug from the table. He then gave Nityan a bath and poured wine on his head. Wow! Wow! The surrounding people were in an uproar. This Brother Woody was even more arrogant than Dong Wunla. At least Dong Wunla didn't dare to pour wine in front of everyone. Nityan's body trembled. Do you know what you're doing? Your actions might bring death to you. As for the boss behind you, he might not even be able to protect himself. Nityan's face turned cold. He wiped the wine off his face and said coldly, The boss behind me is Brother Ghost. My Brother Ghost is a man of few words. You'd better be careful if you offend him. However, Brother Woody didn't seem to understand Nityan's threat. Or maybe he knew but he didn't care. Rumble. Nityan's body emitted a terrifying energy. I don't know who Brother Ghost is, but he's not qualified to be compared to me. Behind him, a brush suddenly floated out. It actually had the power to paint mountains and rivers. This terrifying power surged towards Brother Woody and the others. It seemed like it wanted to obliterate Brother Woody and the others on the spot. You're not even qualified to carry my shoes. Right at this moment, Lin Ling finally made his move. He placed his hands behind his back, tapped his foot and shot out like an arrow. Behind him, those tentacles spread out, and ghostly chi surged. The restaurant immediately fell silent. Everyone narrowed their eyes as they stared at Lin Ling. They also didn't expect this ghost emperor to make a move just like that. Nityan snorted coldly. You overestimate yourself. Purple mist horn. The brush floating in front of him suddenly emitted a purple brilliance as it carved out the word seal. The word seal floated in the air, emitting ripples like those of a sea urchin. Pinnacle ancestor power. A casual stroke from Nityan is so powerful. Is his innate gift the brush? I heard that it's a purple divine brush. The shaft of the brush is like a sword, and the tip of the brush is like a saber. I'm afraid this ghost emperor will have to spend a lot of effort to decipher that character. The surrounding people began to discuss spiritedly. Looking at Lin Ling again, he still had his hands behind his back, and there were countless tentacles dancing behind him. He didn't make any moves, and only used his shoulder to hit. Then, under countless horrified gazes, the huge seal word was actually shattered and then exploded. Lin Ling didn't stop there. He passed by Brother Woody and slammed into Nityan's body. Crash. The entire table immediately shattered, and wine spilled all over the floor. Then, a figure broke through the wall of the restaurant and flew out to the street. That person was naturally Nityan. Now that he was hit by Lin Ling, he couldn't block it and flew out of the restaurant. One had to know that Lin Ling was currently wearing the Dragon God armor, and the Dragon God armor had raised his strength to 30,000 boundaries. Caught off guard, Nityan naturally couldn't block it. I asked you to scram, but you didn't. Do I have to kick you before you scram? Just as everyone was shocked, Lin Ling's voice quietly floated out. Everyone was tongue-tied. Although they guessed that this mysterious man's strength wasn't weak, they estimated that to break through Nityan's attack, the man would have to use a certain method. But who knew that the man didn't use any method at all, just brute force, and Nityan rolled out like a gourd. My Brother Ghost of the Void is a man of few words. Everyone recalled Brother Invincible's words. That collision was indeed ruthless. As for those who were beside Nityan, they were now sitting on the ground with their eyes wide open. They obviously didn't expect the Ghost Emperor to be so strong. Boom! Just then, a roar came from outside the street, and many people knew that Nityan was angry. Looks like there's going to be a good show. Many people squinted their eyes. The previous attack to Wanitian was just a humiliation. It wasn't enough to injure him. Godstar. Almost at the same time, a cold roar came from the street again. And as soon as the voice fell, everyone's expression changed. Because those who were familiar with Wanitian knew that when Wanitian used his mystique, that move had the power of God. Is this guy going to destroy the restaurant? Boom! Next, a large number of people rushed out of the restaurant, afraid of being implicated. On the street, a large number of people were looking at Wanitian because Wanitian had pushed his talent to the limit, the 10th grade ultimate desolate body. And that wasn't all. A huge brush appeared in front of him, and this huge brush moved on its own, writing a huge Zheng word in midair. That Zheng word was like a purple aura coming from the east, constantly expanding, suppressing the restaurant. Come, let's see who's not qualified. Boom! Wanitian roared as he controlled the magical brush. Ultimate desolate body, together with the power of God. Such strength was not something an ordinary person could withstand. Rumble! But at this moment, from the broken wall of the restaurant, a figure shot out, and a Buddhist light bloomed in midair. This was a red Buddhist light, sacred and ancient. And at the center of the Buddhist light was a palm. Bodhi-proof divine technique. Red Bodhi text, heavenly sovereign shoe. 6 paths of myriad movement, wind and cloud. The wind and cloud seemed to condense in that palm, and it slammed towards the huge Zheng word in front. This is the power of God? Who is this person? He's so strong, and from the looks of it, he has a ghostly aura, but why does he have the aura of a Buddha god? Towards the person who suddenly appeared, the people on the street were curious. Just a lowly martial art, how can it be compared to me? Seeing the appearance of the ghost emperor, Wanitian was also shocked, but seeing that the other party dared to clash with his power of God, he immediately laughed disdainfully. Boom! Chapter 40-21. Remember, my name is Lin Ling. Even Wanitian was secretly surprised. Who is this old monster? How come my talent doesn't affect him at all? Furthermore, he also has the power of a god. However, his power of a god can't break through my celestial star, and my cultivation level seems to be higher than his. If we fight for a long time, he will lose. After secretly analyzing, Wanitian quietly became confident. However, at this moment, the stern man suddenly stretched out his left hand. In his left hand a yellow light bloomed, like the light of Bodhi. After his left hand appeared, the stern man looked at his right hand and slapped it hard. This way it was like he was attacking with 2 palms. Hualala! Under countless gazes, the huge Zheng word was shattered by the palm. The terrifying power caused a large number of houses to collapse. Then they tumbled in the sky like straw. What? Everyone was shocked. Wanitian's eyes widened. This was because he sensed that the ghost emperor had 2 powers of God. You dare to question my qualifications? Bang! Bang! At this moment, the stern man's aura was domineering. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Wanitian. His palm slapped out with earth-shattering force. That was the power of 2 gods. One had to know that even martial god realm experts might not have the power of God. However, not only did the stern man have it, he even had 2 powers. This was terrifying. When Wanitian saw the 2 palms approaching, he flipped his hands and a huge brush appeared in front of him. However, when the 2 palms collided, the brush body immediately cracked. The purple light from the brush shot out like a needle, but it had no effect on the stern man. Heavens, he is not afraid of a 10th grade ultimate desolate body. That guy probably also has a 10th grade ultimate desolate body. Bang! Everyone was shocked again. Ka! Almost at the same time, the brush was completely broken. A palm leaped out from it and pressed against Wanitian's chest. A strong light bloomed. Pooh! A ferocious force hit Wanitian's chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His sternum was shattered. I asked you to scram, but you didn't. You forced me to attack. When I attack, you will not be able to block it. Bang! What was even more terrifying was that a large number of tentacles appeared behind the cold-looking man and wrapped around Wanitian's body, pulling him back again. Bang! Next, another palm strike hit Wanitian until he vomited blood. I say you're not even qualified to carry my shoes, but you don't believe me. Bang! The third palm had arrived. The crowd felt that it was unreal when they saw Wenitian, who was ranked 220 on the divine list, being beaten up so easily. Wenitian was ranked 2 million on the divine list. As expected, there were many experts in Shanha City. As for the people in the restaurant before, they felt that it was extremely ironic. Previously Wenitian was so powerful, but now he was beaten like a dog. If this wasn't sarcasm, then what was? I admit defeat. I'll give you the table in the restaurant. Even though Wenitian felt extremely humiliated, he finally opened his mouth. Admit defeat. Previously, the rule of the restaurant was that anyone who was dissatisfied with the restaurant only needed to defeat them to take their position. At that time, when Wenitian was provoked, he refused to accept it. But now he finally knew how strong the other party was. In front of me there is no such thing as admitting defeat. Those who admit defeat shall die. But what surprised Wenitian was that the cold-looking man had no intention of letting him go. Bang bang bang. Palm strike after palm strike. Wenitian's bones were broken. Why are you targeting me? Wenitian could not hold it in anymore. He had already admitted defeat, but this person wanted to kill him? Do you know the price of killing me? Friend, don't you think you're making a mountain out of a molehill by risking your life for a single breath? I'm an expert from the school, and I have the backing of Luli Empress. If you kill me, aren't you afraid of offending Luli Empress? Wenitian kept retreating as he shouted angrily. Hearing this, Lin Ling finally stopped his attacks and looked at him coldly. This made Wenitian think that Lin Ling was finally afraid of him. Everyone, let's take a step back. It's better for you and me. Sometimes people have to bow under someone else's roof. Wenitian took a deep breath and said calmly, I've said it before, you don't even have the right to carry my shoes. However, just as he finished his sentence, Lin Ling finally attacked again. The reddish-yellow Bodhi light shone from both of his hands, and he slapped out with overwhelming force. You're crazy. The ferocious power made Wenitian's pupils tremble. Was the Ghost Emperor really going to kill him? Was he willing to offend Luli Empress for this? Rumble. While he was still in shock, the palms finally landed on his chest. The terrifying divine energy destroyed everything in his body, and then a large number of tentacles swam over and hung him up. However, Wenitian still had a breath left, as if he was on his deathbed. He looked at Lin Ling in disbelief, as if he could not understand what was going on. Before you die, I'll tell you so that you won't die without knowing why when you go to the underworld. Remember, my name is Lin Ling. Lin Ling transmitted his voice, and his words made Wenitian tremble 3 more times. Newcomer King Lin Ling? How could it be him? He was still alive? He could not help but think of what happened 10 years ago. At that time, he used Lin Ling's power to chase after him when he was sealed, but he was stopped by the elites of the God Slayer Alliance. At that time he was extremely frustrated. However, he did not care about it after that. He thought that Lin Ling had offended Luli Empress, and his fate was to be destroyed. But today, Lin Ling appeared and killed him in front of countless people. No wonder this guy was not afraid of Wenitian's backer. You must have had fun chasing me in the past. At this moment, Lin Ling smiled at Wenitian. That smile sent chills down Wenitian's spine. After offending Luli Empress, Lin Ling was still alive. How could this be? At this moment he finally regretted it. He knew that even if the tiger was tired, it was not something he could easily touch. His eyes were wide open and he slowly died. However, the onlookers did not know about the conversation between Lin Ling and Wenitian. They could only watch as Wenitian died. Then their faces changed drastically. Because Wenitian had a powerful background, even if someone defeated him, they did not dare to kill him. But now, Wenitian had died in the hands of the cold-looking man. Next, there would be a great battle in the mountain river city. You killed him? Indeed, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Wherever the voice went, for some reason, everyone felt the smell of death. They looked around and finally saw 5 figures on the roof of a broken restaurant. These 5 people were wearing loose robes and straw hats. They were extremely mysterious. Chapter 40-22. Death God. They were obviously here for Wenitian. Moreover, they seemed to have been here for a long time but did not make a move. Of course, they did not expect the Ghost Emperor to really kill Wen Nitian. Are you blind? At this moment Lin Ling also spoke. His words also caused everyone to be stunned, because they never thought that the Ghost Emperor would actually dare to use such a tone to speak to the five of them. Sure enough, all five of them were slightly surprised. After that, one of the men removed his straw hat to reveal a face that was pale like a sheet of paper, and his emotionless eyes stared coldly at Lin Ling. Death God. There were many experts around, so someone recognized the man. Who is Death God? The expert ranked 189th on the heavenly stairway, level 6 martial god, has an acquired godly embryo, cultivates the Death God evil technique, and has 3 strands of divine force. So powerful. Through the conversation many people trembled inexplicably. 3 strands of divine force and an acquired godly embryo. Such strength could probably wipe out an expert in the later stage of the martial god realm. No wonder he was ranked 189th on the heavenly stairway. Acquired godly embryo. This is the talent to continuously cultivate the ultimate desolate body and rush into the world of gods. Ordinary people who can cultivate godly embryos. Another person said solemnly. Although acquired godly embryos were not as powerful as innate godly embryos, they were not much weaker. After all, although innate godly embryos were more powerful, such talent was too rare and could not be found. Therefore, most people cultivated acquired godly embryos. It was said that to become a god, a godly embryo was indispensable. Therefore, whether acquired or innate, as long as one had a godly embryo, they would have a chance to become a god. However, in this vast void, how many people had acquired godly embryos? Now, I want to ask if you killed Wen Nitian. On the roof, the man called Death God looked at Lin Ling and asked. The two of them, one seemed to represent death, the other seemed to represent ghosts, each with their own characteristics. As soon as the Grim Reaper finished speaking, many people also looked at Lin Ling. They wanted to know if this Ghost Emperor would dare to speak in the face of an expert like the Grim Reaper. Are you really blind? Isn't the corpse right in front of you? However, Lin Ling was fearless. He even threw Nitian's corpse out and stepped on it. Domineering. That move also made many people's hearts tremble. In the end, all their shock turned into a single sentence. My brother Ghost in the void is ruthless and doesn't talk much. The current brother Ghost was indeed ruthless. Seeing Lin Ling stepping on Wen Nitian's foot, the five of them looked over with murderous intent. In Shanha City, experts were as common as clouds. It was like the age of heroes, but that didn't mean that the man with the surging ghost chi was a hero who dominated the world. Rumble. At this moment there was an explosion in the distance. Mountain River City was shaking, as if another great battle had erupted in another part of the city. However, this was also very normal. In this place where there were all sorts of people, chaotic battles were unavoidable. Roar. People raised their heads and could vaguely see a colorful dragon god in the distance, hovering in the sky and sprinkling endless light. Then various kinds of energy exploded, and the power of the energy was terrifying. The 5 people on the roof naturally also looked into the distance, including Lin Ling. Moreover, Lin Ling's lips curled into a gentle smile. Although he already knew that they were all here, Lin Ling was still very happy to see them unleash their full strength in a battle. However, they had always grown under Lin Ling's wings and lacked actual combat experience. Therefore, even though Lin Ling knew that they were here, he didn't look for them in the short term. And they were Yu and the others. Early martial god realm, even though you have 2 streams of godly force which makes you quite powerful, I'll give you a piece of advice. There's always someone stronger than you. Consider yourself lucky today, because we have important matters to attend to. Roar. The 5 people on the roof stared at the battle in the distance and seemed to want to leave this place. However, the man called Grim Reaper snorted coldly at Lin Ling, his words full of disdain. He seemed to be saying, if it wasn't for the great battle over there with just you, we can destroy you with a single finger. Let's go. Roar. Then, the 5 of them said in unison. That Ghost Emperor is quite lucky. Roar. When people saw the 5 experts retreating, they felt both regretful and lucky. Regretfully, they couldn't see a blood-boiling battle. Luckily, they thought that the fierce battle in the distance had saved the Ghost Emperor. Want to leave? At this moment Lin Ling stared at Grim Reaper and sneered. He stomped his foot on the ground and leaped up. His strength had increased greatly, and he wanted to test his strength. Back then he was the newcomer king, but now he wasn't a newcomer, so he wanted to see what this so-called old man was like. The 5 people didn't expect Lin Ling to make a move. They looked forward, but at this moment, a cold voice floated from behind. I don't seem to have agreed to let you go. When this voice came out, those who were staring at the battle in the distance also turned their eyes to the sky. Then a series of gasps sounded. In the sky, red and yellow light bloomed, and countless evil spirit jellyfish with a wisp of golden flame surrounded a man. Both of his palms struck out, like 2 dragons emerging from the sea. You're courting death. The man called Grim Reaper was obviously furious. Damn, who is this guy? He didn't even make a move, but this guy didn't want to let it go. The other 4 people's faces also changed, but they didn't care and leaped away. Grim Reaper, when Nitian is your man, you deal with him. They obviously didn't think that Lin Ling was a match for Grim Reaper. You guys go first, I'll be there in a while. Grim Reaper nodded immediately, and the 4 people's eyes flashed. One of them sneered and said, Don't kill him, after all, he's so bold. I'm afraid he has some background. However, we hope to see you teach him a lesson. After 3 incense sticks of time, come find us over there. After saying that, the 4 of them disappeared in an instant. Grim Reaper immediately smiled coldly, and his eyes began to look at Lin Ling. In his hands a fierce boundary essence burst out, and 3 divine powers appeared in his palms. His palms suddenly became slender, and his claws grew crazily, and a dense death aura spread out. This death aura also carried a fierce, ghostly, and evil aura. And it was the 3 divine powers. Swoosh! Then he looked at Lin Ling and swept out fiercely. Lin Ling's palms also arrived, and he slammed towards the sky. A rumbling sound was heard, and red and yellow light bloomed, blocking the giant claw in the sky. Chapter 40-23. The Power of a Single Kick. You want to fight me? The Grim Reaper laughed contemptuously. With a twitch of his brows, the power of divinity in his ferocious aura stabbed toward Lin Ling like a sword. However, the power of divinity formed by the ferocious aura rushed into Lin Ling's body without any effect. Instead, it disappeared like a stone sinking into the sea. This stunned the Grim Reaper. A very good ferocious aura. It tastes very good. When he looked at Lin Ling, he saw that Lin Ling was still using his palms to block the claw of divinity, but he also raised his head and smiled. It tastes very good? The Grim Reaper was even more stunned. Could it be that the Ghost Emperor had eaten his ferocious aura? He did not know that Lin Ling's realm-devouring beast loved to devour ferocious aura the most. While he was still in shock, Lin Ling's eyes flashed. Because he was about to be swept to the ground by the claw, a large number of evil spirit jellyfish suddenly swam out from behind him. They were mixed with wisps of the flame of the human monarch, and they madly bit the giant claw in the sky. Among the evil spirit jellyfish, the 18 true inheritance dark swords also appeared and slashed out continuously. After they were burned by the slashes, they completely turned into a huge immortal sword and slashed fiercely at the sky. This immortal sword also carried a power of divinity. In this way, Lin Ling had also released 6 powers of divinity at once. Therefore, the claw that was originally sweeping toward the ground was now constantly being blasted upward by Lin Ling. As for the Grim Reaper, his pupils trembled fiercely. 3 powers of divinity? This guy. Rumble. While he was still in shock, his claw that was like the Grim Reaper's claw was actually forcefully smashed into the sky by Lin Ling, revealing a huge flaw. Immediately, a large number of tentacles appeared behind Lin Ling and swept him toward the Grim Reaper. When he appeared in front of the Grim Reaper, he suddenly raised his foot and kicked out fiercely. Looking carefully on the surface of the sole of the foot, a turbulent golden flame spread out, constantly swallowing and spitting, with an unparalleled majesty. Lord Flame. Clearly Lin Ling had unleashed his self-created divine ability on his right leg. His Lord's Flame was extremely ferocious and carried 2 strands of divine power within it. This was why the power of the kick was so terrifying. Good timing. The Grim Reaper coldly snorted and crossed his hands. The Grim Reaper's claw released a dazzling light and formed a claw net in front of him. Boom! Lin Ling's kick landed right on the claw net. But what made the Reaper terrified was that his claw net actually started burning. It was a terrifying golden flame. What happened? The Grim Reaper's body trembled. After all, he was an acquired divine fetus. Could it be that this guy's talent was higher than his? Just as he was in shock, a foot suddenly appeared above his head, causing him to put away his shock and raise his head to look. He saw the mysterious Ghost Emperor with his hands behind his back, but his feet were raised high up in the air, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. "Go down and eat shit." The voice drifted over, and then the foot was like a battle axe majestically chopping down. Crackle! This foot cut off the Grim Reaper's endless death aura. Encountering the human monarch's flame, his death aura seemed to have met its natural enemy. Under countless gazes, the Grim Reaper crossed his hands above his head, but he couldn't block the power of the foot. In the end, his legs were blasted away by the powerful force, and the foot finally smashed onto his cheek. Everyone could clearly see that the Grim Reaper's face was smashed until it was distorted. Boom! Then the Grim Reaper shot into the ground like a cannonball. The entire ground shook, and dust flew everywhere. Wow! Everyone opened their mouths wide. The scene just now was too flashy for them. Then they looked at Brother Ghost, who was floating in the void, and their faces twitched. What was the background of this Ghost Emperor? Why did he defeat two experts immediately after appearing? My Brother Ghost in the void is ruthless and doesn't talk much. I'm convinced. He's really ruthless. Did you see that? That guy stomped the Grim Reaper down with his foot, and he still has his hands behind his back. Looks like he's probably a senior who has cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Then the streets and alleys were filled with discussions. As for the four experts who were running away, they all stopped flying at this moment. When they looked back, the corners of their eyes twitched crazily. The Grim Reaper was actually defeated. That guy called Brother Ghost was probably an ambitious and ruthless person. There was no doubt that the nearby area was shocked by Lin Ling's domineering attitude. Many people were secretly mocking him. That Grim Reaper wanted to spare Brother Ghost, but now it looked like that was a joke. He was just looking for an excuse to escape. Brother Ghost, Void is ruthless and doesn't talk much. While everyone was shocked, the voices of Brother Woody and the others were also roaring. In the sky, Lin Ling shook his head. This collision had allowed him to have a deeper understanding of his own strength. Of course, he was not surprised that he had defeated the Grim Reaper because he estimated that he could have defeated Brother Ghost 10 years ago with his full strength. Now, he obviously had not used his full strength because the Dragon God armor had not been unlocked, and his talent had not been fused. He was just experimenting with some new methods in the past 10 years. When they returned to the restaurant again, Lin Ling and the others waited quietly. In the restaurant, the others also came back one after another, but they were obviously much more low-key now. Some of the more timid ones even cupped their hands and bowed to Lin Ling. Junior greets senior. They obviously regarded Lin Ling as an old monster who had cultivated for thousands of years. Get lost. However, Lin Ling obviously did not give them any face. Get lost immediately. Get lost immediately. Unfortunately, in this vast void, strength represented everything. Therefore, even if Lin Ling was indifferent and domineering, those people did not dare to be dissatisfied. Instead, they admired him even more. Because this was the dignity that a Ghost Emperor should have. On the street, the Grim Reaper finally woke up after being unconscious for 2 hours. He first shook his head in confusion, but when he thought of the scene that had happened before, his expression changed drastically. He did not dare to stay and left with his tail between his legs. In the distant sky, the 4 experts were still waiting for the Grim Reaper. When they saw the Grim Reaper arrive, they immediately stared at the Grim Reaper's face because his face was swollen like a pig's head. This made them shake their heads helplessly. That Ghost Emperor probably has a strong background. His strength is really terrifying. Next, they also began to discuss spiritedly. Did you find out his name? I heard that he's called the Dark Human Emperor. It's quite a strange name because he's full of ghost energy, so it's normal for his name to be dark. However, the word human is puzzling. Most people call him Brother Ghost. After the Grim Reaper arrived, he obviously joined the conversation of the few people. Although he was defeated and was very unhappy, He did not seem to dare to be dissatisfied because he reckoned that Brother Ghost's background was not small. Moreover, he should be an old monster who had cultivated for thousands of years. Therefore, although he lost, it was not unjust. Chapter 40-24. The Taoist of many treasures had appeared. At this moment, Lin Ling was drinking wine in a restaurant. However, his powerful soul force was quietly spreading out, investigating everything in Mountain River City. Currently, there weren't many auras in Mountain River City that could make him feel apprehensive. There were only 2 auras, and one of them was someone Lin Ling had seen before. It was actually the Yuan Venerate martial god that he had met at the Kaiyuan River. The other person was a lady. This lady's aura was very strange. Although she didn't seem very strong upon closer inspection, this lady couldn't be underestimated at all. The lady had even sensed that Lin Ling was spying on her, and reacted even faster than the Yuan Venerate martial god. Without a doubt, Lin Ling was very curious about this lady. Although she wasn't one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo, her level of mystery wasn't much weaker than the 10 great martial gods. As for the Yuan Venerate martial god, Lin Ling could only sneer at him. Back at the Kaiyuan River, if it hadn't been for the sudden appearance of the Kirishin's divine voice, that Yuan Venerate martial god would have been at a disadvantage. Today, although Lin Ling wasn't a match for the Yuan Venerate martial god, he had the divine inheritance treasure as a life-saving trump card, so he wasn't afraid of the other party. The strength of those girls has improved very quickly. Ignoring these 2 powerhouses, Lin Ling turned his attention to Yu and the others. He soon discovered that their strength wasn't much weaker than the death gods. And Yuer in particular was actually a little stronger than the death god. However, this was normal. And Yuer had an innate divine body, so this was how it should be. Lin Ling, who was paying attention to their battle, didn't plan on interfering for the time being. After all, he wasn't sure if the people of Luli Empress would follow Yu and the others. Therefore, if Lin Ling appeared, it would be detrimental to Yu and the others. The current Lin Ling clearly wasn't strong enough to go head-to-head with Luli Empress. Just like that, they quietly drank their wine. Suddenly, the entire city began to tremble. All the battles instantly stopped. Moreover, everyone raised their heads to look at the sky. A piece of news was gradually spreading like a rolling snowball. Taoist myriad treasures had appeared. In Lin Ling's restaurant, everyone stood up and looked into the distance with burning gazes. Taoist myriad treasures has appeared in the center of Mountain River City. Let's go quickly. If we miss this opportunity, then Taoist master of many treasures will disappear again. If I can buy a good treasure, my strength will increase greatly on this trip. Following that, the people in the restaurant also left one after another. Brother Ghost's brother. Beside Lin Ling, Brother Invincible and the others also looked at Lin Ling expectantly. Lin Ling drank a mouthful of wine and shook his head with a smile. He was very curious about Taoist myriad treasures, so he didn't immediately move forward. Instead, he quietly spread out his soul force and searched the entire Mountain River City. Finally, in a corner of the city, he immediately noticed a dirty old man. This old man wore tattered clothes and held a jug of wine in his hand. He was singing a song as he walked down the street. Behind him was a flag. The flag was somewhat tattered, but the words Taoist myriad treasures could be vaguely seen. On the surface, the old man's strength was only at the martial ancestor realm. This is Taoist myriad treasures? Lin Ling was surprised. Then, using the human king's flame, Lin Ling carved out Taoist myriad treasures' appearance. The giant ghost stared at Taoist myriad treasures and said fiercely, "This guy looks very familiar. I'm sure I've seen him before. Wow, this little skeleton can talk." Of course, the giant ghost's sudden words gave Brother Woody and the others a fright. They had always thought that the little skeleton floating beside Lin Ling was just an ornament. "You guys get lost. Don't be so talkative or I'll eat you." The giant ghost was clearly unhappy with Brother Woody and the others' words. It angrily glared at Brother Woody and the others, giving them another fright. That said, this little skeleton seemed very fierce. Lin Ling smiled. He was even more certain that Taoist myriad treasures wasn't simple. Moreover, he sensed that although Taoist myriad treasures seemed to be casually strolling around, his eyes secretly flashed. He seemed to have noticed that Lin Ling was spying on him. Lin Ling withdrew his soul power and said with a smile, "Let's go." He was now certain that this so-called Taoist myriad treasures had nothing to do with Luli Empress. Therefore, Lin Ling didn't have anything to fear. "Let's go." With Lin Ling's words, everyone followed Lin Ling and left the restaurant. At this moment on the street, Taoist myriad treasures was drinking wine as he walked, but his eyes were constantly flickering. There are 3 experts in Mountain River City. One seems to be one of the 10 great martial gods. One is a true disciple of God Miao and has a large number of divine artifacts. And one seems to have the lowest realm, but his methods are very mysterious. Interesting. I hope they are the people I'm looking for. After muttering to himself, Taoist myriad treasures gradually disappeared. At this moment, countless experts were running towards the city, as if they were afraid of missing something. Gradually, the huge ruined square in the city was packed with people. There were experts from all walks of life, experts from academies, famous old monsters, dukes of the final world, and other experts. Some of them were sitting, some were standing, and all of them were eyeing each other covetously. A fiery atmosphere pervaded the ruined square, and as they waited quietly, cries of shock could be heard from time to time. Clearly, when a certain expert with a good reputation appeared, the square was in an uproar. "Get out of the way, get out of the way." Not long after, another expert arrived. This time a sedan chair appeared. It was a beautiful sedan chair, and the women in front of the sedan chair were all devastatingly beautiful. This also caused people to secretly lick their lips, and a few bolder ones even walked forward with a smile. However, before those people could even start to flirt, their arms were cut off. It was an invisible cut. Blood spurted out and miserable shrieks rang out. This also let many people know that the owner of the sedan chair was definitely not simple. "Are you courting death? That's a true disciple of God Miao." An old man finally spoke solemnly, and his words shocked everyone. God Miao's true disciple was the gathering place of the final world's boundary masters, and it was also the only sect in the final world. However, no one dared to underestimate its prestige. Even the 10 great martial gods of 9 provinces didn't dare to meet force with force. It wasn't that the boundary masters were very powerful, but that boundary masters were all treasures, and they could summon many experts. However, people were also very curious. Boundary masters were clearly like treasure troves, so why would they trade with Taoist myriad treasures? After them, another expert arrived. It was one of the 10 great martial gods of 9 provinces, a Yuan venerate martial god. Just like in the past, he walked forward alone. However, the moment he appeared, the square became even more silent. The appearance of the 10 great martial gods of 9 provinces meant that there was some kind of precious treasure, and the first one would belong to the Yuan venerate martial god. Chapter 40-25. Brother Ghost had arrived. Scram. Brother Ghost is here. Scram. While everyone was waiting impatiently for spiritual master Duobao, a domineering voice was heard all of a sudden. Then, more than a dozen figures swaggered into the ruins on the plaza. The young man in the lead was dressed in black robes and looked as stern as a sword. The ghostly aura on his body was also extremely dense. This also attracted a lot of attention. Even the Yuan venerate martial god took a second look. However, he narrowed his eyes again and didn't pay much attention to them. However, the other party's swaggering arrival made many people's eyes turn cold. After all, they had never heard of this Brother Ghost. What Brother Ghost? Where is he from? Scram. Someone walked out, holding a giant hammer that was taller than a person. As he walked, the entire plaza shook. "I'm not from anyone. My Brother Ghost is alone. Why, are you not convinced?" Scram. A person immediately jumped out from beside the stern man and retorted arrogantly. And he was none other than Brother Invincible. This also made the eyes of some people who knew Brother Woody twitch. When had this fellow become so bold? However, the powerhouses who had been at the restaurant earlier were silent at this moment, because they knew that the strength of this Brother Ghost fellow wasn't simple either. "Does this mean that you don't have a backer?" Scram. The man with the giant hammer clearly didn't know this. Now that he heard that the other party didn't have a backer, he immediately narrowed his eyes. Scram. Scram. He held the giant hammer in his hand and smashed it viciously. This giant hammer was clearly an innate artifact that had reached the second grade. He obviously didn't hold back and smashed his opponent to death with this move. Clang! However, it didn't take long for a tall bodyguard to appear. He stretched out a single hand and easily blocked the huge hammer. Moreover, a strand of golden flames emanated from his palm and incinerated the huge hammer. The huge hammer was actually incinerated into water, and it continuously dripped to the ground. Silence! The plaza instantly fell silent. No one had expected that the tall bodyguard would be so powerful. Bang! However, while they were still in shock, the bodyguard's right hand quickly reached out and actually broke through the man's defensive boundary energy before piercing through his chest. Whoosh! Blood immediately gushed out. As for the man, he lowered his head in disbelief and his eyes narrowed, because he was actually unable to block the attack of the expert before him. Moreover, he didn't feel any intense pain, and he didn't even feel anything. At a closer look, the man's chest was being burned by golden flames, and the wound was constantly expanding. Almost at the same time, the bodyguard pulled out a bloody heart with his right hand. Then, under countless shocked gazes, the bodyguard ate it just like that. Everyone's pupils constricted. Eat people. They had seen people being refined as cauldrons, and they had also seen people being used to cultivate. However, this was clearly the first time they had seen people being eaten. The most terrifying thing was that the man was still alive. He watched as the monster in front of him ate his heart. Then his eyes rolled back and he finally fell on his back. From the looks of it, he was mostly scared to death. You're courting death. At this moment, the expert behind the dead man roared angrily. This was because the bodyguard had killed his man in front of him. This was also a disgrace to him. Hearing his voice, the platinum evil spirit finally raised its head and revealed a skull. Moreover, it was a golden skull. With just a glance, the roaring man's heart trembled violently. He didn't dare to speak again. How terrifying. This expert is probably invincible among the early-stage martial gods. I wonder what kind of flame that is. It's actually so powerful. Could it be the underworld's ghost flame? This seems to be a bodyguard. The bodyguard is already so powerful. I'm afraid the master is even more ferocious. Could it be that these fellows escaped from the underworld? Everyone's expression turned solemn. After the overbearing actions from before, everyone knew that the Ghost Emperor was not to be trifled with. However, what shocked everyone was that the cold Ghost Emperor seemed to be completely unaware of what had just happened. He had already led everyone to the side of the ruins plaza and sat down. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Don't you see Brother Ghost is here? Moreover, Brother Ghost's followers, Brother Woody, and the others were very arrogant. They kept chasing away the people around them. Seniors, please take a seat. There were ancient stone chairs around the ruins. The people sitting on the stone chairs all spoke respectfully, and then left with their tails between their legs. This was because Lin Ling's aura was too mysterious. They didn't know the depth of it. Coupled with the brutality of the golden skull, it would be strange if they weren't afraid. Even some of the strongest experts narrowed their eyes at this moment. Although they weren't afraid of Lin Ling, it was obvious that they didn't want to offend Lin Ling for no reason. Obviously, in the ruins plaza, this circle of people, Lin Ling had undoubtedly gained a firm foothold. No one dared to underestimate him. What's wrong? On the other side, a few beautiful women were looking at the cold man. And Yuer suddenly frowned because she realized that Yu seemed to be very curious about that man. It seems to be Brother Ling. Yu suddenly whispered. Her words made Yuer and the others' expressions change slightly. They quickly looked up and down at the cold man. That bodyguard does look like a platinum evil spirit. However, that bodyguard is in the form of a golden skull. Moreover, although that man also has a small skull, it's obviously not that fierce giant ghost. Moreover, I can't sense Lin Ling's aura from him. And Yuer and the others secretly checked and then said, "What, the leader is back?" There were a few experts behind them. They were the Chun siblings, Canon God, and the others. At this moment, when they heard Yuer and the others' words, their expressions changed instantly. However, upon closer inspection, they couldn't sense Lin Ling's aura at all. On the contrary, the cold man seemed to have sensed their spying. He slowly looked over. That gaze was mixed with coldness. Chan Ting and the others' hearts trembled subconsciously. What a cold gaze. Then they didn't dare to look at it again. Maybe it's an illusion. Yu's eyes flickered for a moment before she warned, "Everyone be careful. I'm afraid that there are quite a few of Glazed Empress's people here. They must be secretly following us, trying to find Brother Ling's whereabouts from us." Hearing this, everyone nodded. Along with the passage of time, an old man finally walked over slowly from afar. He seemed to be drunk, and he swayed as he walked, and there was a tattered flag behind him that read Taoist Myriad Treasures. At this moment, everyone stood up with burning gazes. The pupils of some warriors who saw Taoist Master of Myriad Treasures for the first time constricted. That dispirited and dirty old man is Taoist Master of Myriad Treasures? If they didn't see the flag behind him, they would definitely think that he was a beggar. At the same time, Lin Ling and the giant ghost exchanged glances. They understood each other. Chapter 40-26. There were 3 of them. The giant ghost nodded at Lin Ling, implying that it was certain that Taoist Master Duobao was a deity from the era of deities. "Senior Taoist Master Duobao, we have been waiting for a long time." Someone finally spoke up with a smile when the old man reached the center of the ruins. The others also greeted him politely when they saw this. Although Taoist Master Duobao was only a martial ancestor, they obviously needed his help now, so they naturally didn't dare be too negligent. Wait, what are you waiting for?" However, Taoist Master Duobao didn't seem to give them any face and spoke disdainfully. After he finished speaking, he started drinking again, his nose turning bright red. That old ghost. Many people immediately cursed, but they restrained themselves because they realized that the top powerhouses didn't say anything. They just stared coldly at Taoist Master Duobao. "I really want to sleep." At that moment, Taoist Master Duobao suddenly dozed off. "Don't sleep, senior. We came here because of your reputation. What should we do if you sleep?" "Don't you dare. Do you believe that I won't kill you? Don't offend him. He's the owner now. If you offend him, you might not be able to buy anything." Many people were flustered, but they didn't dare offend Taoist Master Duobao. However, Taoist Master Duobao had already fallen asleep. Furthermore, he had fallen asleep while standing. This made everyone angry and speechless. Even Lin Ling shook his head and chuckled. This old man really had a personality. "It's not impossible if you want me to sell things. As long as the 3 of you agree, I will start selling things." Taoist Master Duobao suddenly spoke again. However, his eyes were still closed, as if he was talking in his sleep. However, the crowd obviously didn't care so much and hurriedly asked, "Senior, who are the 3 people? You just need to tell us and we will definitely make them agree." At the end of his sentence, some people revealed even more ferocious looks, as if they would definitely attack the 3 people mentioned by Taoist Master Duobao if they dared not agree. The first is that middle-aged man. "If he asks me, I will start selling things." Taoist Master Duobao narrowed his eyes and suddenly pointed. He was referring to Yuan Venerates and martial gods. The Yuan Venerate martial god stood alone in the distance with his arms crossed and his eyes half closed. He finally opened his eyes when he sensed Spiritual Master Duobao pointing at him. His eyes were cold. Him. Everyone shuddered. How could they dare threaten a Yuan Venerate martial god? For a time, the ruined square became incomparably silent. Taoist Master of Many Treasures, open the store. However, at that moment the Yuan Venerate martial god spoke up as well. Although the Yuan Venerate martial god was ridiculously powerful, he still wanted to purchase the treasures. "Beg me." However, Taoist Master of Many Treasures was still half asleep, but he still spoke calmly. "You." The Yuan Venerate martial god narrowed his eyes. He was one of the 10 great martial gods of the 9 continents, yet he was actually asking this rotten old man for help? This obviously made him unable to swallow his pride. However, he then glared fiercely at the other genius on the other side, and his eyes turned icy cold. Previously, he had asked Miao Shun's true inheritance to help him forge an island, but the other party had charged too high a price, so the 2 parties had ended up without a conclusion. Now he no longer asked for Miao Shun's true inheritance. He planned to forge an island himself and buy some rare items from Taoist Master of Many Treasures. Taoist Master of Many Treasures, please open the store. The Yuan Venerate martial god finally put down his pride and pleaded. He clearly knew that although Taoist Master of Many Treasures didn't seem strong, he had many strange methods. Perhaps the person who had appeared here wasn't his true body. Thus he didn't make a move forcefully. After all, if he angered Taoist Master of Many Treasures, this transaction would be over. Alright, then the second one. Taoist Master of Many Treasures nodded and suddenly pointed into the distance. He was pointing at the mysterious genius. Miao Shen's true inheritance? Everyone was shocked. Then they all reacted. It turned out that Taoist Master of Many Treasures had asked the 3 strongest people present to open the store. Taoist Master of Many Treasures, please open the store. A voice was also heard from the side of the mysterious genius. It was a woman, not the master of the genius. It's her. Lin Ling naturally also looked at the woman who had spoken. The corners of his mouth immediately curled into a sneer. That was Princess Tian. It was no wonder that Princess Tian didn't have much strength, but there were still many people who respected her in the final realm. It turned out that the person behind her had quite a big background. The person over there doesn't seem to be pleading with me. Letting a dog speak doesn't count. However, Taoist Master of Many Treasures clearly didn't give Princess Tian any face. He still looked drowsy. A dog. Princess Tian immediately clenched her teeth. That dirty old man actually didn't give her any face. Previously, she had thought that she could speak on behalf of Miao Shan's true inheritance and was incomparably glorious. However, all this was just her extravagant hope. He didn't take her seriously at all. He just treated her like a dog. Dirty old man, shut up. Don't you know how lowly you are by calling me a dog? Princess Tian also shouted. However, Taoist Master of Many Treasures clearly didn't care. He was still half asleep. On the contrary, everyone was displeased. Who is this bitch? Does she have to deliberately cause trouble? She seems to be the famous Princess Tian. So what if she's Princess Tian? She didn't even ask to speak. What nonsense is she spouting? Serves her right to be called a dog. Slut. Many people mocked and ridiculed her. In the past, they would still give face to Princess Tian. However, it was obvious that the treasure was more important now. Slut? Princess Tian's face darkened when she heard these curses. She stomped her feet and was about to curse back. Princess Tian, you should shut up. You aren't qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as me. However, this time, a Yuan Venerate martial god spoke in a cold voice. This is infuriating. Princess Tian clearly didn't dare flare up. Meanwhile, the prodigy behind her finally spoke up. Senior Taoist Master of Many Treasures, please open the shop. This time it was clearly the owner of the prodigy. What surprised everyone was that the owner of the prodigy was actually a woman. Furthermore, her voice sounded very pleasant. The owner of the prodigy had to be very beautiful. Alright, you are the second one to agree. Now there is only the third one left. Taoist Master of Many Treasures finally opened his eyes. His gaze swept across the vast plaza of the ruins before landing on a young man. The young man was delighted for a moment before he said proudly, "Hee, I never thought that I would be the third one. Senior Taoist Master of Many Treasures, please open the shop." Alright. At the moment he was clearly very excited and even felt proud. After all, this shop needed 3 people to open and he was one of them. The other 2 were like the titans of the final realm. This meant that he was on equal footing with these titans. Chapter 40-27. Treasures for Sale. Who is he? The first bloodline of the Duan family, Duan Wuhan. So it's him. Then he is indeed qualified. Everyone stared at the young man and nodded. The Duan family was the first family in the world, backed by the martial god of the Duan lineage. In terms of qualifications, no one present could compare with him. Duan Wuhan was aware of everyone's worshipful gazes and smiled. He had come here this time for the cloud silk flower. This mysterious flower bud bloomed in the void and was only as big as a silk thread, but it had a mystical power. His Duan family's old ancestor, the martial god of the Duan clan, had repeatedly warned him that if he could find this cloud silk flower, then his talent would have the hope of stepping into the ranks of divine embryos. Unfortunately, he had searched the entire 9 regions but had not found the cloud silk flower. Instead, someone had told him that Taoist Master Duo Bao had this kind of treasure, so he had come. "Thank you for your kindness." Then Duan Wuhan cupped his hands and said to the crowd. He looked like a hero of a generation, calm and dignified. "You're too kind." People naturally flattered him. The main reason was that Taoist Master Duo Bao had finally opened the store because of Duan Wuhan's words. "Sorry, it's not you." However, just as people were congratulating him, Taoist Master Duo Bao suddenly shook his head. Silence. The entire ruined square was silent, and people's faces trembled. After all this, it was not Duan Wuhan. As for Duan Wuhan, his eyes widened, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Shit, it's not me? In fact, I don't know who you are. I just think that you look like me." Taoist Master Duo Bao took a sip of wine and said sincerely. Duan Wuhan really wanted to vomit blood. He didn't know who he was, but he was looking at him. Moreover, he looked like Taoist Master Duo Bao. "Like your sister. You're a sloppy old man who doesn't care about his appearance, while I'm young and handsome, a dragon among men, all right?" Duan Wuhan had obviously suffered a huge blow. This also made many people secretly laugh. Before, it seemed that that guy was thinking too much. At this moment, Taoist Duo Bao's gaze lingered around, and in the end, it fell on a stern-looking youth. He said indifferently, "Sir, how about you open the store? However, I don't need you to beg me. You just need to reveal your true face." He was referring to Lin Ling. At this moment, everyone turned their gazes towards Lin Ling, and their expressions changed greatly. After all, they also knew that anyone that could catch the eye of Taoist myriad treasures definitely wasn't simple. For example, there had been a Yuan Venerate martial god, a true disciple of Miao Shan, and a mysterious ghost emperor this time. This ghost emperor is actually on the same level as Yuan Venerates and martial gods. Many people looked at Lin Ling from head to toe, but they couldn't see anything. They could only sense a strong cold aura. Even the Yuan Venerate martial god looked at Lin Ling with a frown. After all, he didn't know what qualifications this mysterious man had to be on equal footing with him. "It's him? How infuriating. He's just a nameless nobody." As for Duan Wuhan, he was so angry that his body was trembling. He was the #1 genius of the Duan family, yet he couldn't compare to that guy with the skeleton. Scram. However, Lin Ling finally spoke up under countless gazes. He didn't know why the other party had taken a fancy to him, but he guessed that the other party had sensed the giant ghost. Or perhaps the other party had sensed that he had been spying on him not too long ago. Scram? When this domineering and indifferent voice was heard, the entire plaza went into an uproar. Now only Lin Ling was left. He only needed to plead with Taoist Duo Bao or do as Taoist Duo Bao said, and he would be able to open the store. However, that stern-looking man had actually asked Taoist Duo Bao to scram? Ha. Taoist Duo Bao laughed when he heard this. That fellow was really bold. "Sir, you're the only one left. Don't go against everyone's wishes," the Yuan Venerate martial god said unhappily. Then he chuckled. "If you agree, I, the Yuan Venerate martial god, will owe you a favor. When you come looking for me in the future, I will definitely entertain you with great hospitality." Although he wasn't happy deep down, he also felt that this mysterious man wasn't simple. Perhaps his background wasn't weak. Yes, young friend, we will also be friends from now on." Upon hearing the Yuan Venerate martial god's words, everyone smiled one after another. None of your business. However, the stern-looking man was indeed the ghost emperor. He didn't give anyone any face and directly reprimanded everyone. "You." This undoubtedly infuriated everyone. "Call him Brother Ghost." However, what made everyone furious was Brother Woody. He actually wanted everyone to call that stern-looking man Brother Ghost. How could some old freaks put down their pride? "Sir." The Yuan Venerate martial god also frowned. "None of your business." However, Lin Ling didn't give him any face either. After all, Lin Ling still remembered what had happened at the Kaiyuan River. His words had undoubtedly offended the Yuan Venerate martial god, causing the latter's face to darken. He really couldn't understand why the other party wouldn't give him any face for no reason. All right. I don't want you to reveal your true appearance. You just need to imitate them and beg me to open the store. Then I will open the store. What surprised everyone was that Taoist Myriad Treasures actually tried to smooth things over. Of course, he was also very surprised. He hadn't expected that the young man would be so unfeeling. Open it or not. However, Taoist Myriad Treasures' words still didn't make Lin Ling compromise. How interesting. Taoist Myriad Treasures also glanced over when he sensed that the man was unfeeling. Their gazes collided in midair like invisible sparks. In the end, Taoist Myriad Treasures smiled. Open the store. He had compromised. For some reason, he seemed to have a feeling that the mysterious young man definitely wouldn't compromise. He might even give up on the treasures on Taoist Myriad Treasures. This clearly surprised Taoist Myriad Treasures. How could he have known that Lin Ling had already guessed that Taoist Myriad Treasures would open the store? After all, Taoist Myriad Treasures definitely wasn't that kind-hearted. He definitely had some ulterior motives for selling treasures. Therefore, Lin Ling had no intention of compromising from the very beginning. Next, the treasures were officially put up for sale. Grade 6 Divine Artifact, White Rainbow Underworld Bone Bottle. When the first treasure came out, the ruined square instantly went into an uproar. Although Taoist Myriad Treasures didn't introduce the use of the treasure, the words Grade 6 clearly illustrated the value of the treasure. A pure white jade bottle that emitted an underworld aura floated out, as if it contained countless bones. Taoist Myriad Treasures also fell silent and allowed people to shout out their bids. The highest bidder would win. 100 million royal crystals. Trash. You dare to throw out 100 million royal crystals and embarrass yourself? I bid 1 billion. 5 billion. The price soared wildly. Some martialists with extreme talent obviously didn't want to miss out on this treasure. Chapter 40-28. The cloud silk flower appeared. Next, the second treasure to appear was the radiant lightning wood. The price soared once again. Even the Yuan Venerate martial god made a bid. However, the one competing with him was the woman among the geniuses. While these two big shots were fighting, the others naturally didn't dare speak. In the end, the treasure was obtained by the woman who had inherited Miao Shan's true teachings. After all, compared to royal crystals, a Yuan Venerate martial god really couldn't compare to a boundary master. Humph! The Yuan Venerate martial god could only snort coldly. Lin Ling watched them compete indifferently. He didn't have many royal crystals on him, only 1 billion. However, he had 3 divine stones, which were his only bargaining chip. However, he hadn't taken a fancy to any treasures yet, so he remained silent. The treasure of the Myriad Treasure Taoist was taken out from the void. This method is similar to the inheritance of a god. No wonder no one dares to snatch the treasure of the Myriad Treasure Taoist. Soon after, Lin Ling kept staring at the Myriad Treasure Taoist. Furthermore, Lin Ling sensed a familiar power from the void that the Myriad Treasure Taoist had opened. This power was very hidden, but Lin Ling's spirit power was very strong. After continuous investigation, he finally confirmed it. He couldn't help but exchange a glance with the giant ghost and see the surprise in each other's eyes. After all, that hidden power was actually the power of the realm's consciousness. Could the Myriad Treasure Taoist be related to the realm's consciousness? Cloud Silk Flower. Suddenly a new treasure appeared. A white silk thread appeared in midair and floated there. From afar it looked like a strand of hair. This also made many people suspicious. What was the use of that treasure? Some people used their abilities to investigate, and immediately discovered that it was a flower that seemed to be condensed from clouds. It had branches and leaves, but it was too thin, so it couldn't be seen without using abilities. 100 million royal crystals. Someone started to bid. Although they didn't know what use it had, it was still a rare treasure. If they collected it, it might come in handy in the future. 300 million royal crystals. Someone else bid, but in general, there weren't many people bidding. 1 billion. But at this moment, a cold voice interrupted everyone's bidding like a sword. Everyone's gazes also began to search, and then they discovered that it was the Ghost Emperor. Even Taoist master of myriad treasures took another look at the ghost emperor, because this was the first time the cold man had spoken since he started selling his treasures. Brother Ghost, he's a man of few words. Let's not fight with him. I've heard that when Nitian, who was ranked 220 on the divine list, was also killed by him. And the Grim Reaper, who was ranked 100 on the divine list, was also kicked into a pig's head. We can't afford to offend him. Let him have it. Many people stared at Lin Ling and then fell silent. Ha ha ha, I'm sorry, I've been waiting for you to make a move. However, just because the average person dared to provoke Lin Ling, it didn't mean that everyone didn't dare. At this moment, a loud laugh suddenly rang out, causing everyone to look over. They discovered that the one who spoke was Duan Wuhen. At this moment, Duan Wuhen had his hands on his hips. He looked incomparably spirited, as if he was looking down on the crowd of heroes. He was obviously very excited because he had been looking for the cloud silk flower, and now he had found it. Therefore, he wouldn't let anyone have it. Don't think that you're so powerful. Others are afraid of you, but I'm not. 1 billion, right? 5 billion. Subsequently, Duan Wuhan spoke boldly and increased the price by 5 times. This price also frightened many people. In the face of a treasure that they didn't know the use of, Duan Wuhan actually threw out 5 billion. He was indeed worthy of the inheritance of the world's #1 family. 5 billion, who dares to compete with me? Duan Wuhan roared again, his provocative eyes looking at Lin Ling. Then, he stretched out his hand in motion for Lin Ling to make a bid. However, in the face of his provocation, Lin Ling's face was still indifferent, like an ancient well without ripples. 6 billion. As if he wanted to vent all his previous depression, Duan Wuhan spoke again. This time he raised the price for himself. What he wanted was that kind of carefree, that kind of domineering aura. Didn't Taoist Master Duobao say that as long as the three of them nodded in agreement, this treasure would be sold? But now it seemed that the other two did have the ability, but the cold-looking young man was just making up the numbers. This time Lin Ling was still cold and did not say a word. This also made many people begin to doubt Lin Ling, because if Lin Ling was really a strong person, how could he not even take out 6 billion? Obviously, many people thought that Lin Ling had been crushed and could not fight back. 10 billion. However, Lin Ling did not speak, but a clear voice suddenly sounded. It was from the true inheritance of Miao Shan, and the one who spoke was Princess Tian. Princess Tian, you want to compete with me? Duan Wuhan's eyes immediately narrowed. Sorry, my master has taken a fancy to this treasure. She wants it. Princess Tian played with her nails and said lightly, very well, then I'll see if your true inheritance of Miao Shan has the money, or if my Duan family has the money. Everyone else bid. If not, then I'll compete with Miao Shan's true inheritance. Duan Wuhan suddenly smiled indifferently. Although Miao Shan's true inheritance could not be offended, the Duan family was not to be trifled with. 20 billion. He shouted the price boldly. 30 billion. However, Princess Tian smiled faintly and followed up. 40 billion. Duan Wuhan's eyes instantly turned red. Looking at them constantly raising the price, many people's eyes also turned red. These big forces were amazing. They did not treat imperial crystals as imperial crystals, but as water. 50 billion. Compared to Duan Wuhan's jealousy, Princess Tian raised the price calmly. This time the price undoubtedly made Duan Wuhan ponder for a long time. 50 billion imperial crystals. This was obviously enough to cultivate a master of the martial god realm. This amount of money could not be underestimated for the Duan family. However, thinking of the use of the cloud silk flower for himself, Duan Wuhan suddenly gritted his teeth and shouted, 100 billion. Silence. This time, even Miao Shan's true inheritance was silent. In his view, although the cloud silk flower was a strange object, it was not worth 100 billion to buy it. Come on, who dares to compete with me? Seeing that Miao Shan's true inheritance's momentum had weakened, Duan Wuhan's momentum suddenly rose, with a domineering aura. However, he was indeed domineering because no one around the ruined square dared to fight with him. However, just when everyone thought that the flower would go to someone, a cold voice suddenly sounded. 1. This voice that broke the silence obviously came from Lin Ling. Everyone's pupils trembled fiercely. Previously, they all thought that Lin Ling had given up. And one piece? One imperial crystal? People were immediately stunned. Chapter 40-29. The Ultimate Treasure. The Map of the Eight Gods' Heavenly Palace. At this moment, Duan Wuhan was obviously very excited, as if he had consecutively defeated Lin Ling and Miao Shan. One god stone. However, his sarcastic laughter did not change Lin Ling's expression. His voice was still indifferent. Ha ha ha, one and it's a stone. When Duan Wuhan heard this, he could not help but laugh until tears flowed down his face. He thought that Brother Ghost would use an emperor crystal, but it turned out to be a god stone. However, he was still laughing, but he found that something was wrong because the people around him were not laughing. Instead, their pupils were wide open. God stone? Are you sure? Taoist Master Duo Bao's pupils constricted as he spoke solemnly. The real powerhouses knew what a god stone represented. It was a treasure that even emperor crystals could not buy. It could temper a martial artist's divine power. It could be said that the value of a god stone was 100 times more than the cloud silk flower. I'm sure. Lin Ling nodded faintly. As soon as the word sure fell, the entire ruined square immediately went into an uproar. Everyone stared at Lin Ling with eyes full of horror. This was a real nouveau riche. He deserved to be one of the 3 people personally named by Taoist Master Duo Bao. God stone. As for Duan Wuhan, he stuttered at this moment because he finally heard clearly that there was an additional word God before the stone. It's your turn. Almost at the same time, Lin Ling also looked at Duan Wuhan indifferently, motioning him to make a bid. Duan Wuhan stood on the ground with his mouth wide open. For a long time he did not shout a word. Finally, he sat on the ground powerlessly. His pupils were still trembling, and his heart was still in shock. As for his face, it was turning black at this moment. Ha ha ha. Seeing Duan Wuhan's appearance, many people could not help laughing. Duan Wuhan thought that he was so powerful that he wanted to crush Brother Ghost. But it turned out that everything he had done before was just the actions of a clown. How generous, even using divine stones to buy things. The Yuan venerate martial god also stared at Lin Ling gravely. He knew that anyone who could take out a divine stone to trade so easily definitely wasn't simple. At this moment he finally acknowledged Lin Ling's position. TSK, using a god stone to buy an unknown flower. That cold young man is really generous. In a corner of the ruins, Yu and the others gasped. They were intimidated by the domineering aura of the cold-looking young man. But it's very good. Seeing him step on Duan Wuhan's face until it turned black, I felt very happy. Next to him, Xian Yuangu'er smiled playfully. She knew that Duan Wuhan and Lin Ling had always been at odds. Now that she saw the latter suffer a loss, she felt as happy as eating honey. That clown will always be defeated by Brother Ling. Hearing this, Yu also smiled happily, but her eyes were fixed on the cold man in the distance. For some reason, she felt that the man's style of doing things was very similar to Brother Ling's, except that he was colder than Brother Ling. After the cloud silk flower was seized by Lin Ling, the treasures continued to be sold. Of course, Lin Ling didn't care much about the remaining treasures. He looked at the white silk thread wrapped around his finger and smiled. This cloud silk flower could repair his Xi 6 butterfly divine war chariot, allowing the power of this divine artifact to be released 5 times. Therefore, a piece of divine stone was definitely worth it. Any treasure was actually priceless. It mainly depended on where the owner used it. If the Xi 6 butterfly divine war chariot could save Lin Ling's life at a critical moment, then how could a divine stone compare? Furthermore, Lin Ling estimated that if he reached the 2nd level martial god realm, the divine inheritance treasure could be opened again, and there would probably be even more divine stones inside. Time passed quietly, and a large number of treasures were bought. After an unknown period of time, Taoist Master Duo Bao, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. The number of treasures for sale today is 198. Now let's sell the last treasure. Obviously, this was the final treasure. The map of the 6th and 7th floors of the 8 Gods' Heavenly Palace. An ancient sheepskin map appeared in Taoist Master Duo Bao's hand. He waved it slightly, and it attracted everyone's attention. The 8 gods' heavenly palace was one of the 7 great forbidden lands in the land of the 9 provinces. Up until now, no one had ever reached the 9th floor, and not many people had even reached the 6th and 7th floors. However, it was obvious that the heavenly palace had countless treasures. Therefore, with the map, it was equivalent to having another life-saving trump card. 100 billion monarch crystals. Everyone present knew about the 8 gods' heavenly palace, so someone immediately shouted a price. 300 billion. Moreover, the price kept rising like a rising tide. 500 billion. Even the mysterious person who had inherited Miaoshan's true inheritance bid. The map of the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Lin Ling's eyes finally lit up as he turned to look at the giant ghost. The giant ghost nodded heavily. The giant ghost had always wanted to find out its origins, and it had come from the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Therefore, it had always guessed that its origins were related to the 8 gods' heavenly palace. I must get it. Lin Ling was even more excited. He had yearned for the 8 gods' heavenly palace for a long time. Furthermore, he had entered the 8 gods' heavenly palace many times and found many treasures inside. 800 billion. While Lin Ling and the giant ghosts were discussing, the price of the map was still soaring. Even the Yuan Venerate martial god had spoken. The price of 800 billion sealed the mouths of many people. Apart from a limited number of people, basically no one could compete. There were only 5 people left in the bidding war. 850 billion. Furthermore, one person had already reached his limit. His face was flushed and his eyes were anxious, as if he was deeply afraid that someone else would outbid him. Unfortunately, just because he had reached his limit didn't mean that others had as well. 900 billion. This time, under the countless gazes of the crowd, a beautiful woman spoke indifferently. This lady was also one of the 5 people still bidding. Lin Ling also recognized her. She was Yu Yu. This also made Lin Ling understand the purpose of Yu Yu and the others' trip. It turned out that they had come for the map. 1 trillion. However, Miaoshan's true disciple wasn't willing to be outdone. 1 trillion. Even the Yuan Venerate martial god wouldn't hand over the map with both hands. Yu Yu and the others had ugly expressions on their faces as they watched these big shots continuously raise the price. Yu Yu turned to look at Enuer and asked secretly, "How much money do we have left?" "Little sister Yu, we have a total of 1.5 trillion. However, we borrowed some from Songchiri and the Wind Snow Academy Dean before we came out. We currently have 1.8 trillion. Enuer replied immediately. Upon hearing this, Yu Yu nodded and raised the price again. 1.5 trillion. She had raised the price by 300 billion in one go. Clearly, she wanted to use this price to intimidate her opponents. In fact, the effect was very obvious as 2 out of the 5 people were immediately eliminated. The remaining 3 were in a 3-way confrontation. Chapter 40-30. A man of few words. It's rare for a treasure to catch my eye, so I won't admit defeat so easily. 1.8 trillion. The Yuan Venerate martial god said with a smile. He stared at Yu Yu and the others with murderous intent. 2 trillion. However, the final winner seemed to be Miaoshan's true inheritance and raised the price to 2 trillion. This price made the faces of Yu Yu and the others turn gloomy. They knew that they had failed. They clenched their fists and their eyes were red. Clearly, they weren't willing to give up. It seems like they have given up. Then only the 2 of us are left. The current price is 2 trillion. Next, it's my turn to call out the price. The Yuan Venerate martial god also looked at Miaoshan's true inheritance. His eyes were also red, as 2 trillion royal crystals was a huge sum of money for him. I'll be waiting respectfully. That prodigy also said. The 2 of them were like tigers and dragons vying for hegemony. 2 divine stones. However, just as the 2 sides were about to fight to the death, a cold voice was suddenly heard. This voice was so cold that it seemed to have come from the depths of hell. Brother Ghost. Everyone didn't have to guess anymore. They all turned to look at the cold man. The 2 big shots, Yuan Venerate martial god and Yuan Venerate martial god, also paid attention to the source of the voice. They immediately felt disgusted, as if they had eaten a fly. They knew that Brother Ghost wouldn't take this lying down. Furthermore, they had always been on guard against Brother Ghost. Who would have thought that Brother Ghost would finally make a move? My brother Ghost in the Void is indeed a man of few words. After all, when he didn't speak, it was enough. When he spoke, it was earth-shattering. 2 divine stones. Spiritual Master Duobao's eyes lit up instantly. No one would be able to compete with such a price. However, the map of the 8-god Sky Palace was no small matter. Therefore, the Yuan Venerate Martial God's eyes flickered. He seemed to be planning to take out an even more precious treasure and go all out. Even the mysterious prodigy fell silent. However, everyone guessed that the mysterious master wouldn't give up either. My 2 divine stones are for them. At that moment, Lin Ling suddenly stood up and pointed at Yu and the others. Silence reigned once more. The Yuan Venerate Martial God was stunned. Then he looked at Yu with a gloomy expression. For them, the highest price they bid before was 1.8 trillion royal crystals. Now that Brother Ghost has given them 2 god stones, who can compete with them? He's smashing them to death so that the Yuan Venerates and martial gods won't have a chance to retaliate. The crowd also came to their senses, and it was as if their hearts had been struck by lightning. Now who could still bid? No, not a single one. More than a dozen figures emerged from it, and the person in the lead was Duan Wuhan. Don't you know how long we've been waiting for you here? Duan Wuhan said with a smile as soon as he appeared. He naturally knew who these beauties were. In fact, he had tried to provoke these beauties many times over the years. However, whether it was him personally appearing or the people sent by the Duan family, they all ended in failure. Because there were always powerhouses protecting these people in the dark. Of course, that was in the final world. Now this was the myriad worlds. Those who were secretly protecting them shouldn't be able to reach here. Beauties, after Lin Ling's death, you're quite lonely. Why don't you come with me? Duan Wuhan said with a smile. A fan appeared in his hand, and he waved it confidently. Because these peerless beauties were all Lin Ling's. If he could get them, how happy would that be? However, staring at these women, his heart was also incomparably jealous. He couldn't understand why all the good things belonged to Lin Ling, including these beauties. He, Duan Wuhan, seemed to have been under Lin Ling all his life. Okay. But the premise is that you can take my sword.